Chapter 76. Bai Songling thought of something and hurriedly asked Dongfang Ke, I heard that Yi Jioga can use needles to force out the love poison in your body, then does she have a way to cure it? She said no. Dongfang Ke recalled the 1,000-year-old snow lotus pill that Yi Jioga had mentioned and asked Bai Songling, have you heard her talk about the 10,000 feet abyss? No. Bai Songling shook her head. They weren't that familiar with Yi Jioga. Go back and check it out. Although Dongfang Ke was in a daze at the time, he could still vaguely remember that after he had consumed a pill, there had been an extremely strong life force that had awakened his life force. But looking at Yi Jioga's attitude, it seemed that he wouldn't easily tell him this secret. Just as Dongfang Ke had Bai Songling investigate the matter of Yi Jioga being transferred into the 10,000 Zhang abyss, the Empress of the Phoenix Ritual Palace was also asking the Crown Prince, did Yi Jioga really obtain some sort of treasure in the 10,000 Zhang abyss? I don't know either. I heard that she claimed that she obtained a treasure left behind by Yun Tianwei at the bottom of the 10,000 Zhang abyss. That was how she managed to recover her cultivation. The Crown Prince shook his head. He knew that it was impossible for Yun Tianwei to still be alive, and it was even more impossible for him to leave behind any artifacts in the 10,000-foot abyss for Yi Jioga, so he didn't take this matter to heart. There's no smoke without fire. Even if Yi Jioga didn't obtain Yun Tianwei's pill, he must have obtained some kind of treasure. The Empress raised her slender eyebrows. She was very dissatisfied that the Crown Prince had neglected such an important piece of information. That's what I thought at first, but when I sent people to investigate, I found that she didn't have any treasures on her. The Crown Prince hurriedly explained. He had privately sent many people to investigate, but they did not find any useful information. Later on, with the incident with Yi Yu, he stopped investigating. Even if Yi Jioga obtained the treasure, she wouldn't be able to use it openly. Send people to keep a close eye on her. If there's a chance, capture her and interrogate her properly. This consort doesn't believe that we won't be able to get anything out of her. As the Empress spoke, she scrutinized her long red nails. Her voice was calm but filled with murderous intent. She had originally wanted to spare Yi Jioga's little life, but she had courted death and stood on Dongfang Ke's side. She wanted to use the news of Yi Jioga's death to prove to everyone that being with Dongfang Ke would not end well. Yes, your son will go and do it now. The Crown Prince nodded his head respectfully. You can go and do your work now. Yi Jioga did not know that he had already been targeted by Dongfang Ke and the Empress. After she boarded the carriage, she was nagged by Mama Qing non-stop. Eldest miss, even if you want to repay Prince Dongling's kindness, you can't lose yourself in it. How can we participate in the battle between the royal families? Yes, I understand. Yi Jioga nodded perfunctorily. Big miss, this old servant doesn't care about other things, but you must listen to this old servant. Mother Qing was anxious. Previously, when eldest miss beat up the Crown Prince on the street, people would at most say that her love turned into hatred and she flew into a rage out of humiliation. She just laughed it off. But if the first young miss really stood on Dongfang Ke's side and opposed the Crown Prince, then it would be a battle between factions, and if they were not careful, they would attract a great calamity. Mother Qing, I know you care about me. But don't worry, I know what I'm doing. I definitely won't fall for it. Yi Jioga comforted Mother Qing. The current situation was that the Empress and the Crown Prince had already determined that she was in cahoots with Dongfang Quebec. Even if she wanted to escape, it would be impossible. However, Yi Jioga's comforting words could not make Mother Qing shut up. After returning to Purple Forest Park, Mother Qing was still incessantly advising Yi Jioga not to play with fire. She should obediently stay at home and be a well-bred young lady. After a few years, she should find a good family to marry. Yi Jioga was extremely annoyed by Mother Qing's nagging. In order to divert her attention, she took out the spiritual tool that Dongfang Ke had given her. Mother Qing, look at what this is. Ah, where did you get this snake? Mother Qing was shocked by the silver snake in the box. This isn't a snake, this is the second-grade spiritual tool, lightning serpent illusion whip. Seeing that Mother Qing was shocked, Yi Jioga couldn't help but reveal a proud smile, like a child who had successfully pulled a prank. This is the legendary spiritual tool. Mother Qing couldn't help but widen her eyes. She looked at the small silver snake as if she was looking at a peerless treasure. She wanted to touch it, but didn't dare to. Yi Jioga picked up the whip and poured his spiritual power into it. The slumbering silver snake seemed to have woken up. It quickly grew from 3 inches to 7 feet long, and its entire body flashed with purple lightning. Yi Jioga casually threw it at a strange stone placed in the courtyard. There was a loud bang. That huge stone turned into powder. This power was double of her usual attack. No wonder spirit practitioners wanted a spiritual tool even in their dreams. Eldest Miss, this spiritual tool is not cheap. Mother Qing was also a cultivator. Seeing such a treasure, she naturally couldn't bear to part with it. Without several tens of thousands of gold, I don't think I can get it. This was still her conservative estimate. Several tens of thousands of gold? Mother Qing's eyes widened. The most silver she had seen in her life was only a few thousand silver taels. Several tens of thousands of gold for a spiritual whip, it really opened her eyes. Come, Mother Qing, you give it a try. Yi Jioga handed the spiritual whip to Mother Qing. Although this thunder snake illusionary whip was most suitable for people with lightning spiritual power, other spirit practitioners could also use it. This old servant has gold spiritual power, it won't break right. Mother Qing was a little hesitant, but her pair of eyes were tightly glued to the spiritual whip. Obviously, she wanted to try it. If it could be broken so easily, it wouldn't be a spiritual tool, but a glass tool. Yi Jioga directly stuffed the spiritual whip into Mother Qing's hand, letting her feel at ease to use it. Mother Qing tried to pour a bit of gold spiritual power into the spiritual whip. She saw that the small snake turned into a golden snake, but it was much smaller than before. Its power was only 30% of Yi Jioga's attack. Eldest Miss is more suitable to use it. Mother Qing returned the spiritual whip to Yi Jioga with satisfaction. Only such a treasure was worthy of her family's eldest miss. Yi Jioga was about to say that if there was a chance in the future, he would also get a good spiritual tool for Mother Qing to use. Suddenly, she felt a strange feeling coming from her wrist. She quietly lowered her head and looked at the inside of her wrist. She saw that the purple mark that had already sunk into her skin suddenly floated out, and a faint purple light faintly floated inside. It was obvious that Zi Shang, who had been sleeping for a long time, was about to wake up. Yi Jioga remembered that she still owed Zi Shang 2 kisses. Afraid that he would wake up and ask for them, she hurriedly said to Mother Qing, "I'm tired, I want to go rest first. Do you want this old servant to prepare a hot bath for you?" Mother Qing thoughtfully asked. She felt that it would be more comfortable to rest after bathing. Yi Jioga's face darkened. He felt that Mother Qing wanted to wash her clean and send her to Zi Shang to taste. Chapter 77. Eldest Miss, did this old servant say something wrong? Mother Qing saw Eldest Miss's ugly expression and thought that her nagging had angered Eldest Mississippi. No. Yi Jioga quickly shook her head and pretended to be worried. "I just thought that father hasn't sent anyone to question me even though I've been back for so long. I wonder what's going on. You know that I offended Her Majesty the Empress in entering the palace this time. I'm afraid father won't forgive me. This old servant will go to the Zhengyuan to find out." Mother Qing's face tightened and she immediately said nervously. Usually, Master didn't like eldest young Mississippi. Now that eldest young Miss had offended the Empress and was related to Prince Dongling, Master probably wanted to eat eldest young Mississippi. She had to find out Master's movements. Yi Jioga saw that Mother Qing had left and then walked into her room. Just as she closed the door, Zi Shang's demonic and impetuous voice sounded in her ears. "Xiao Jioga has become bolder and bolder in this honored one's absence." Then, she fell into a familiar embrace. Her nose was filled with Zi Shang's unique cold fragrance. Yi Jioga found that Zishang's voice was not right and quickly turned to look at him. What do you mean? This honored one should have told you not to reveal any information about the heart of the tree of God. This disobedient girl had used the heart of the tree of God to save a human prince. If he hadn't woken up in time and sealed off the presence of the tree of God, those old geezers hiding in the palace would have immediately appeared and eaten her alive. Yi Jioga looked at Zishang's cold handsome face. That pair of purple vertical pupils stared at her with suppressed anger. Under Zishang's aggressive purple eyes, she felt inexplicably guilty. It was as if she was a restless woman who had been caught in the act by her husband who had returned from outside. Pa. Zishang wasn't her husband. Yi Jioga tossed that damned thought out of his mind and explained, the situation was dire at the time. If I didn't save Dongfang Ke, the Empress would pin the crime of murdering a prince on my head. At that time, I wouldn't be able to keep my life. Zishang's eyes narrowed as he looked at Yi Jioga. His eyes were so bright that they seemed to be able to see through everything, and he seemed to be weighing whether her words were true or not. Yi Jioga looked at him calmly and said, I am not related to Dongfang Ke, why should I risk my life to save him? At the end of the day, I am only trying to save myself. Is that so? You're not related to him at all. Why would you allow him to touch you like that? Zishang's eyes revealed a dangerous aura. The heart of the tree of God was secondary. What he could not tolerate the most was a man coveting his woman. Bah, who said that big sister was willing to be touched? That's because she was infected with the love silk grass. Yi Jioga felt that he had been wronged to death. She was touched, set up, and now she was being questioned by a demon. Was there still any justice in this world? Zishang saw that Yi Jioga was so angry that her face turned red, and finally believed that she was unwilling. However, he did not want to let this disobedient girl off so easily. He moved closer to Yi Jioga's ear and asked, then this sovereign is now infected with the love poison. Will you let him touch me? Heh, who has the ability to poison our Zishang with the love poison? Yi Jioga rolled her eyes unceremoniously. She did not even know how to prepare a draft when lying. Who else could it be other than you? Zishang's snake tail was tightly wrapped around Yi Jioga. One of his fiery large hands was holding her waist, while the other moved up along her waistline, stopping at her abdomen. Where did he touch you? Here. Previously, Yi Jioga did not feel anything when Dongfang Ke touched her. Now that Zishang touched her, she felt as if her skin was about to be scalded, and her entire body was about to be set on fire. Yi Jioga's face turned red, and she slapped Zishang's hand away. She put on a fierce expression and said, Don't touch me. This sovereign will ask you again. Did he touch you here? Zishang's hand was pressed against Yi Jioga's abdomen without moving. It's none of your business. Yi Jioga turned her head and refused to answer this damned question. Little Jioga, don't forget that you belong to this sovereign. Zishang felt that he had to make Yi Jioga realize this. If you want to sleep, just say it. Don't talk nonsense. Yi Jioga provoked intentionally. Even if she sold herself to Zishang, she did not want to be controlled by him. Stubborn little thing. Zishang's gaze darkened, and a dangerous light appeared in his eyes. He reached out and sealed a few of Yi Jioga's major acupuncture points, then threw her onto the bed. Then he grabbed a silk handkerchief and firmly tied her hands to the headboard of the bed. Are you crazy? Let go of me. Yi Jioga was extremely furious. She raised her leg to kick him, but Zishang pressed her down. Be good and this sovereign will be gentler to you. Zishang's extremely beautiful face revealed an icy expression. His coldness carried a bloodthirsty allure, causing Yi Jioga's entire body to tremble. When she came back to her senses, she found that Zishang was using actions that did not match his expression. He was gently taking off her clothes piece by piece. Yi Jioga's body could not help but lightly tremble. She did not expect that Zishang, who was always smiling and would not get angry no matter what she said, would be so terrifying when he was angry. It made her, who had always prided herself as a masculine woman, scared. When all of her clothes were taken off, leaving only her underwear, Yi Jioga could clearly feel goosebumps appearing on her smooth skin. She tried hard to calm herself down, and fiercely looked at Zishang. She swore in her heart. If this guy really forced himself on her, then she would cut off all ties with him and never talk to him again. Where did he touch you? Here. Zishang touched the smooth skin of Yi Jioga's abdomen as he stared at her. That's right. Yi Jioga deliberately wanted to anger Zishang, so she made a disdainful expression and said, he touched everywhere. Are you satisfied now? Zishang's eyes instantly darkened. But he did not get angry like Yi Jioga imagined. Instead, he lowered his head and kissed her abdomen. Then, it gently nibbled with its sharp teeth and sucked on it, leaving a red mark on it. Yi Jioga's whole body was numb from his kiss. She wanted to scold him, but her voice was as soft as cotton candy. Don't touch me. Zishang raised his head and stared at her. His moist red lips curled up, and his hoarse voice was full of courage. This sovereign will leave a mark on the place where you have been touched, so that you will always remember who you belong to. After that, he lowered his head and kissed her abdomen up again and again. His kiss was overbearing and wild, leaving a string of red marks on Yi Jioga's smooth skin. It was a domineering declaration of his sovereignty. Chapter 78. Zishang's kisses moved higher and higher, his strength increasing. This wasn't growing strawberries, it was practically growing carrots, and the kind that dug holes. Yi Jioga felt as if her flesh was about to split open from Zishang's mouth. That terrifying feeling caused her scalp to go numb and her entire body to tremble. She clenched her teeth and used the last of her strength to struggle, shouting, "Go away!" Zishang mercilessly pressed Yi Jioga under his body, his purple eyes emitting a cold light that was as sharp as a knife. Did he touch this place? Zishang's large palm covered her chest, his deep voice causing her to shudder. No, no, no. Yi Jioga shouted as she shook her head. You really didn't? Zishang narrowed his eyes, the cold aura emitted from his body seemed to be able to freeze the air, making it difficult for people to even breathe. Really not, Yi Jioga said resolutely. Dongfang Ke definitely did not touch this place, at most he had accidentally pressed it. Liar. Zishang instantly saw through Yi Jioga's lie, shattering her hopes with a single sentence. He suddenly lowered his head and bit her on the mouth, rolling around heavily. Zishang's kiss was not gentle at all, it was like a wild beast gnawing on its prey, that ferocious look as if he wanted to swallow her whole. Yi Jioga even felt as if she was about to be bitten to death by Zishang. If the heavens gave her another chance, she would definitely not let Dongfang Ke take even half a step closer to her. Zishang seemed to feel her regret, finally softening his strength, like a lover gently caressing her. Yi Jioga discovered that Zishang's gentleness was even more deadly. When Zishang finally got up, Yi Jioga was already covered in a thin layer of sweat, her entire body limp on the bed. She had originally thought that she would be raped by Zishang, so she had already made all sorts of preparations to sever all ties with him and never have anything to do with him. She did not expect that all her bitterness and hatred would be kissed away by Zishang, and she even went to the Western Paradise with him. How could she still have the face to criticize Zishang? Did it feel good? Zishang laughed like a big cat that had stolen a fish. Good my ass. Yi Jioga's face exploded. It was so red that it looked like it was about to drip blood. He wanted to kick this perverted snake to death. Do you dare to let another man touch you next time? Zishang lowered his head, and his warm breath blew into Yi Jioga's red ear. His tone was filled with threat. Yi Jioga really wanted to say, Sis isn't a prostitute. Which man would touch her for no reason? Dongfang Ke was just an accident, okay? However, Zishang obviously did not accept this reason. She couldn't afford to offend this pervert right now, so she could only nod her head sullenly. She was as obedient as a little lamb as she said, "I won't dare anymore." "Good girl." Zishang caressed Yijioga's face and gently planted a kiss on her cheek without lust. Then, he helped her loosen the ribbon on her wrists. Seeing that her wrists were red from being tied up, he even affectionately helped her massage them. Yijioga didn't have any strength left and could only be at his mercy. Zishang helped her put on her clothes again, and then kindly told her, "Your scumbag father is here to see you." After saying that, he returned to the mark on Yijioga's wrist. F***ck me. Could the situation be any worse than this? Yijioga really wanted to cry, but no tears came out. She propped up her weak body and quickly changed into a dark green dress. Then, she splashed her face with cold water to calm down the tide of passion in her body. When she was done, Mother Qing's voice also sounded, "Eldest miss, master is here." "I understand. Father, please wait in the outer hall for a moment." Yijioga tried her best to calm her voice. "Yes, but young miss, please hurry up," Mother Qing exhorted before leaving. Yijioga sat in front of the dressing table and carefully checked if there was anything wrong with her. Fortunately, other than her red eyes and mouth, the black scars on her face covered up all other abnormalities. Only then did she feel relieved and leave the inner room, walking to the outer hall. At this time, Yi Yuxuan was walking back and forth in the hall with his hands behind his back. It could be seen that he was extremely anxious and depressed. When he saw Yijioga come out, he angrily shouted, "Rebellious girl, you dare disobey the Empress? Do you not want to live anymore?" "Father, what do you mean? Why can't your daughter understand?" Yijioga was too lazy to bow to Yi Yuxuan. After sitting on a chair, she signaled Mother Qing to bring a cup of tea over. She was extremely thirsty. Mother Qing quickly brought the hot tea over and used her eyes to signal Yijioga to talk nicely and not to talk back to the master. Yijioga ignored Mother Qing's gaze and drank her tea. It wasn't that she wanted to talk back to Yi Yuxuan, but he specifically came to find trouble. It wasn't her style to be scolded and not talk back. Seeing that Yijioga didn't put him in her eyes at all, Yi Yuxuan was so angry that his face turned ashen. He pointed at her nose and scolded, "People are about to fight their way to the door, and you still have the face to drink tea here. If you want to drink, scram out. Our Yi family doesn't have a shameless woman like you." Bang! Yijioga heavily placed the teacup on the table and glared at Yi Yuxuan with her beautiful eyes. "How can you let people drink tea properly?" Yi Yuxuan was inexplicably shocked. When he came back to his senses, he found that he was actually afraid of this unfilial daughter. He immediately became even angrier. "Good, you still dare to put on a face with me now. Father scolded your daughter as soon as you came in. Why didn't you ask your daughter what happened in the palace? Otherwise, why would I offend the Empress for no reason?" Yijioga asked in a cold tone. I don't know your virtue. You are an unruly person at home. Isn't it normal to offend people in the palace?" Yi Yuxuan was completely uninterested in Yijioga's explanation. "Since father knows that your daughter is an unruly person, why do you still want your daughter to enter the palace to see the Empress? Aren't you deliberately making me angry?" Yijioga rubbed the lines on the teacup and revealed a mocking smile. "Don't be unreasonable here. You offended the Empress and the Crown Prince this time. You must make them calm down. Otherwise, our Yi family will be dragged down by you." Yi Yuxuan said unquestionably. "Then what does father want me to do?" Yijioga raised her eyebrows. She wanted to see what more ridiculous things this scumbag of a father could say. The Crown Prince already said that as long as you return the purple lightning wood to him, he will be magnanimous and not bother with you. He can even let you enter the palace as a concubine." Yi Yuxuan felt that this idea was very good. Not only could it make the Crown Prince calm down, it could also get rid of Yijioga, this troublemaker. It was killing two birds with one stone. Previously, he thought that Yijioga had really obtained some treasure in the 10,000 zhang abyss, which was why he tolerated her. He didn't think that Yi Jioga would become so infuriating. Even if there was a treasure, he didn't want it. He would leave it to the crown prince as a thank you gift for taking away this annoying person. Chapter 79. Concubine. Yi Jioga raised his eyebrows and said with a smile that wasn't a smile, "Father, you mean to have your first wife's daughter, Master Yun's granddaughter, become the crown prince's concubine?" Moreover, under the circumstances that the crown prince and I were previously engaged, she didn't even want to be the crown prince's wife and wanted her to be a concubine. The crown prince and Yi Yuxuan must have been kicked in the head by the same donkey. Jioga, even if you used to have a noble status, your reputation has been ruined by yourself. You should be grateful that the crown prince is willing to accept you into his household, Yi Yuxuan said disapprovingly. If Yi Jioga was an outstanding daughter with high cultivation, he naturally wouldn't marry her off to the crown prince as a concubine. Otherwise, the Yi household would become a joke. But now, Yi Jioga was a famous trash and ugly girl in Shangjing. Even if she had performed well recently, only a few people knew about it. Even if he married her off to the crown prince as a concubine, no one would say anything. Instead, they would praise him for not using his ugly trash to ruin the position of the crown prince's concubine. Yi Jioga ignored Yi Yuxuan's idiotic request. She poured herself another cup of tea and carefully tasted it. The taste wasn't bad, but it was a bit lacking compared to the spiritual tea in Dongfang K's residence. Yi Yuxuan didn't get angry when Yi Jioga ignored him and said, "All right, it's settled. In 7 days, I'll send you to the crown prince's residence to be a concubine." 7 days? And he had to personally send her over? Was she going to be a concubine? She was selling herself to be a servant. Yi Jioga put down her teacup and said coldly, "What if I don't want to?" "If you don't want to, then get out of the Yi household. Whether you live or die, it has nothing to do with the Yi household," Yi Yuxuan said ruthlessly. "I can get out of the Yi household too." Yi Jioga's slender fingers spun around the teacup as she said in a voice as cold as a nail, "But I have to take what grandfather left me." "What do you mean?" Yi Yuxuan frowned deeply. "Father, I don't think you've forgotten that you married into the Yun family. Even if you changed this mansion to Yi Mansion without permission and changed mother's business to Yi Group, it doesn't change the fact that these things were left to mother by grandfather. She was the only bloodline of the Yun family. If she wanted to scram, it should be Yi Yuxuan who brought his concubines out of her Yun manor." "What nonsense are you talking about? I worked hard to get all these things." Yi Yuxuan was so angry that his face turned red. "Hee, justice is in the hearts of the people. There are some things that you can't achieve by deceiving yourself." Seeing that Yi Yuxuan was so angry that he was about to go crazy, Yi Jioga kindly reminded him, "Go back and think about it. Is your own reputation more important, or is it more important to please the crown prince? If I really leave the house with nothing, I'm afraid that others will poke at your back and scold you for being disloyal and unfilial, forgetting righteousness at the sight of profit, killing your wife and abandoning your daughter, heartless and inferior to pigs and dogs. You. Yi Yuxuan was so angry that blood came out of his throat. The finger that was pointing at Yi Jioga kept trembling. "Mother Qing, I think father's body doesn't seem to be feeling well. Quickly find someone to send him back so that he won't die of anger here and let others see a good show for our Yi family," Yi Jioga slowly said to Mother Qing. Mother Qing was extremely anxious. She wanted to persuade the young miss to speak less, but she didn't dare to. Seeing the young miss speak, she hurriedly went to Yi Yuxuan's side and said, "Master, please calm your anger. The young miss is still young. You can slowly teach her." Yi Yuxuan always liked to vent his anger. Seeing the old servant beside Yi Jioga come over, he didn't hesitate to raise his hand and slap her face. A crisp sound rang out. Yi Yuxuan's slap landed on Yi Jioga's body. Yi Jioga stood in front of Mother Qing. His small face was slapped to the side by Yi Yuxuan and quickly became red and swollen. The corner of his mouth was accidentally cut by his teeth, and a trace of blood seeped out. Yi Jioga raised his hand to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth. He expressionlessly looked at Yi Yuxuan and said, "Father, are you satisfied with this slap?" Yi Yuxuan looked at Yi Jioga's deep black eyes and inexplicably felt guilty. He coldly snorted and hurriedly left. "Young miss, why are you so stupid? This old servant is only a servant. It's fine if the master hits me to calm down, but why did you rush over here?" Mother Qing's nose turned sour and tears immediately flowed down her face. Just now, she purposely went to Yi Yuxuan's side and wanted to take a few hits from him to calm him down. But she didn't expect that the young miss would pull her away and take the slap. "You're not a servant. You're the person closest to me." Yi Jioga's face was swollen like a steamed bun. It hurt to even speak. After her mother passed away, if it wasn't for Mother Qing protecting her, her skin and bones would have been eaten by Su Yufeng and her mother. Mother Qing suffered so much for her, and she always wanted to make it up to her. This kind of compensation was not only material, but also spiritual. So she took the slap for Mother Qing. She wanted to let her know that degrading herself to please Yi Yuxuan was useless. Mother Qing wiped away her tears and put ice on Yi Jioga's face. At the same time, she fiercely thought in her heart. Yi Yuxuan, this heartless scum, no longer treated the young miss as his daughter. Then, she wouldn't respect him as a master in the future. No need for this. I still have to go out tomorrow to let people see. Yi Jioga planned to go out tomorrow and let everyone see how she was beaten by Yi Yuxuan after entering the palace to see the empress. At that time, she didn't need to say anything. The people of Shangjing would have all kinds of imagination. As long as she let someone guide her a little, it was guaranteed that the empress and Yi Yuxuan would regret it. It would be her gift to the empress. This was to prevent the empress from thinking that she was the noblest woman in the world just because she was sitting on the phoenix throne. Mother Qing instantly guessed Yi Jioga's plan. She very considerately took out a bottle of medicine that she had treasured for many years and said, "Young miss, apply this. I guarantee that you will be satisfied." Yi Jioga doubtfully applied the medicine that Mother Qing strongly recommended on his face. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, his originally slightly swollen face immediately became blue and purple. His whole body was swollen like a pig's head. It looked like he had been slapped several hundred times with a shoe. Isn't this too exaggerated? Yi Jioga looked at his unrecognizable face. It was very challenging to stare at this pig head and go out. "I want everyone in Shangjing to know what kind of thing Yi Yuxuan is," Mother Qing fiercely said. In the past, in order to please Yi Yuxuan, she always advised the young miss to endure. But today, the slap that the young miss suffered made her clearly realize that if she tolerated bitches, she would only be stepped on by them. Chapter 80. Okay, go to the carriage house and help me book a carriage. I want to go to the Yuwu tea house tomorrow, Yi Jioga ordered. The Yuwu tea house was the favorite gathering place for the children of aristocratic families. These children of aristocratic families were like newborn calves that were not afraid of tigers. They dared to talk about anything. What they liked the most was gossip about others. Last time when she taught the crown prince a lesson, it was spread by these children of aristocratic families. Moreover, they all sympathized with her. Seeing her pig face again today, they would definitely have more topics to talk about. This old servant will go prepare now. Mother Qing bowed and was about to leave when she was stopped by Yi Jioga. Help me send 2 more invitations. Invite Lord Bai and Lord Wan to the Yuwu tea house tomorrow. She planned to take this opportunity to ask about the relationship between Bai Songling and Dongfang, Quebec. If she really wanted to cooperate with them, this bit of honesty was a must. Okay, this old servant understands. Mother Qing's face inexplicably showed a trace of joy and went out in high spirits. She had previously inquired about Wan Ziang and Bai Songling were both young talents of the Ministry of Justice. They were a good match for their eldest miss. Yi Jioga did not know that Mother Qing was messing with them again. She looked left and right in the mirror. Just when she was considering if she should make her lips paler, Zishang's figure appeared again. Yi Jioge was startled. She hugged her chest and said hatefully, "Don't say this. You also want to punish me." She would really fall out with him. Fortunately, Zishang was not that abnormal. He reached out his hand to touch Yi Jioge and said in a low voice, "Idiot." His fingers were cold but warm. His tone was flat and full of heartache. Yi Jioge inexplicably felt a bit complicated. Previously, Mother Qing didn't feel anything when she felt heartache. Now that it was Zishang who felt heartache, she inexplicably had the urge to act coquettishly. Evil. This damn emotion was not something a tough woman like her should have. Yi Jioge pretended to be indifferent and said, "It looks serious, but it's actually okay." Zishang did not speak. His cold fingertips swept across Yi Jioge's red and swollen cheek. A trace of cold power seeped in. Yi Jioge was surprised to find that her face did not hurt anymore. She quickly looked in the mirror and found that the wound was even more hideous than before. It was so swollen that she couldn't even open her eyes. "You did this on purpose, didn't you?" Yi Jioge glanced at Zishang from the corner of his eyes. Zishang withdrew his finger in satisfaction. Others might think that Yi Jioge was ugly, but he felt that he was adorably ugly. The mind of a pervert was indeed something that mortals could not comprehend. "That's right, Zishang. Do you know what kind of demonic poison Dongfang Ke is afflicted with?" Yi Jioge saw that Zishang was in a good mood, so he took the opportunity to ask. Of course. Yi Jioge's thoughts couldn't be hidden from Zishang. However, seeing that this little girl had suffered quite a bit, he decided to be merciful and help her this once. What Dongfang Ke has been poisoned with is the king poison of a level 5 demonic beast, the white jade spider. It's the king poison. Yi Jioge was shocked. No wonder the spirit doctors couldn't recognize it. One had to know that the kings of level 5 demonic beasts all lived in seclusion in the depths of the demonic clan's territory. Other than some legendary top-notch spiritualists who could enter, ordinary people could not even enter, let alone kill them. She had never heard of such an expert in the Thunder Kingdom. Where did the Empress get her hands on the king poison? Also, where did Nanny Su, the evil cultivator beside the Empress, come from? What does she have to do with the Su family? Did Emperor Xian Wu know about all of this? Questions appeared in Yi Jioge's mind like riddles, but she couldn't find the answers. Don't think about it. It's none of your business. Zishang didn't like Yi Jioge worrying for others. How is it none of my business? If they can get the White Jade Spider King's king poison to harm Dongfang Ke, they can get other demonic poisons to harm me. How can I not be on guard? Yi Jioge said unhappily. You think too highly of yourself. Zishang's face was cold. King poison was not that easy to get. Even if Yi Jioge was really poisoned by a king poison, he could still help her get it out. Yi Jioge was used to being beaten by Zishang, so she didn't feel embarrassed. She continued to ask, "Then do you have a way to save Dongfang Ke?" "Why should I save him?" That audacious human brat dared to touch his woman. He was already being merciful by not chopping him into pieces. "Because I took his consultation fee. If you don't help me save him, then I can only think of other ways to make it up to him." Yi Jioge purposely emphasized the word, "make it up to him." As for what other ways it was, Zishang could guess for himself. As expected, Zishang's expression darkened. He said disdainfully, "Isn't it just a little spirit whip? And it's a broken thing with 6 broken segments. What's so great about it? If you have the ability, then give me a 9-segment spirit whip," Yi Jioge purposely said. Zishang couldn't even pass on his cultivation to her, so he definitely couldn't give her anything good. Yi Jioge was right. Zishang didn't have any of his treasures with him in the past. Now, he could only manifest himself because of the soul contract he signed with her. He really couldn't give her anything good. He was calm. "I really can't give you a 9-segment spirit whip right now." Since you like that broken whip, then accept it. I'll help you save him. This way, he could be considered to have helped Yi Jioga earn consultation fees. I knew you treat me the best. It was rare for Yi Jioga to act like a spoiled child. Although she was disgusted by her own mushy tone, Zi Shang still enjoyed it. Once he was in a good mood, he immediately told her the method to save Dongfang, Quebec. As it turned out, the Snow Spider King lived in the depths of the snowy mountains. The poison on its body was the coldest ice poison in the world. If he wanted to remove this ice poison, he had to find the strongest spirit grass, the 5th rank fire dragon grass. Then, he would have to use the thunderfire needle technique to remove the ice poison. Where can I find the 5th rank fire dragon grass? Yi Jioga was a little worried. This kind of spirit grass, which sounded extremely powerful, would probably require a lot of effort to get her hands on it. It's already good enough that you can help him expel the poison. Don't tell me you still have to help him find the spirit grass. Zi Shang felt that this little girl was too stupid. As a human prince, didn't Dongfang Ke have more power and influence than her? Why did he need her to worry about this problem? That's right. Yi Jioga also realized that her mind was in a knot. Not to mention anything else, just based on the Bai clan's power in Dongling and Shangjing, it would be better for them to send a few teams to search for the fire spirit grass than her. Alright, don't think so much. Have a good sleep. Zi Shang lightly tapped the space between Yi Jioga's eyebrows. Yi Jioga instantly felt a wave of drowsiness surge up. She grabbed her clothes and said in a daze, I'm not sleeping with you. Idiot. Zi Shang carried Yi Jioga horizontally. He gently placed her on the bed and covered her with a blanket, then returned to the mark on her wrist. Chapter 81. Yi Jioga slept soundly in the faint fragrance of purple deceased tea. The next day, after washing up, Mother Qing entered the room and reported, Miss, the carriage is ready. Lord Wan and Lord Bai also replied this morning, saying that they will arrive on time. Do you want to go now? Let's go now. Yi Jioga knew that Wan Xiang and Bai Songling would come in advance. She couldn't let them wait in vain. Yi Jioga wore a light purple dress embroidered with lilacs and a light purple curtained hat. Then she refused Mother Qing's company and went to the tea house alone. When she got off the carriage, she took off the curtained hat and successfully scared the waiter. Miss, this is a tea house, not a clinic. You came to the wrong place. This miss is here to drink tea. Yi Jioga said domineeringly with a pig-head face. I'm sorry, all the seats in the lobby have been booked. I'm afraid there are no extra seats. The waiter politely refused. Because Yi Jioga's face was too scary, sitting in the lobby, no one dared to come in to drink tea and chat. It's okay, this miss has booked a private room on Snow Mountain. Lead the way. Although Yi Jioga wanted to show off her pig-head face, she was a little impatient after being stared at by the people in the restaurant for a long time. The private room on Snow Mountain is booked by Yi family. Are you Miss Yi? The waiter took a deep breath and almost blurted out, Who hit you? Fortunately, he still remembered his identity and swallowed the words back into his stomach. Nonsense, can't you recognize me after seeing the black scars on my face? Although the waiter didn't know how to read the situation, he still indirectly helped her achieve the effect she wanted. I have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Please forgive me, Miss Yi. This way please. The waiter finally knew how to read the situation. When Yi Jioga went to the second floor with the waiter, she could still hear all kinds of discussions behind her. How did Miss Yi get beaten like this? Who knows? By the way, I heard that she went to the palace to see the Empress yesterday. Could it be? The meaning was self-evident. It's hard to say. Everyone knows that the Empress and the Crown Prince don't like her. It's not just the Empress and the Crown Prince. I heard that even her father, Master Yi, has a bad opinion of this daughter. Sigh, this motherless child has such a tough life. Wrong, she had a hard life because she didn't have a grandfather, Yi Jioga was very satisfied with the content of these discussions. After she entered the private room, she ordered a pot of Longjing tea and a few plates of peanuts and broad beans. Then, she looked at the scenery outside the window and ate with relish. When Wan Ziang and Bai Songling arrived at the Yuwu tea house, they happened to hear the customers in the lobby talking about Yi Jioga. She said that she had been slapped in the face by the Empress, the Crown Prince, and her own father with a shoeboard. Now, her face was swollen like a pig's head. It was really sad to hear it, and anyone who saw it would cry. Their hearts skipped a beat as they hurriedly entered the private room. Instead, he saw the victim, who should have been heartbroken, taking a sip of broad beans and a sip of tea, eating happily. "You're here. Take a seat, take a seat." Yi Jioga greeted them with a smile. It was just that his pig face looked uglier when he smiled than when he was crying. "Eldest Miss Yi, what happened to your face?" When Bai Songling saw Yi Jioga yesterday, she was still fine. "How did it become like this in just one night?" "It's nothing serious, I just accidentally made father angry." Yi Jioga sighed and finally revealed a sad expression. "Is it because of the Empress and the Crown Prince?" Bai Songling frowned. He didn't expect Yi Yuxuan to be so despicable, to actually be so ruthless to his own daughter. And His Highness, Prince Dongling. This was the main culprit. Bai Songling was silent. After a while, she let out a long sigh and said, "We've implicated you." This sentence was equivalent to admitting her relationship with Dongfang Quebec. What is the relationship between Brother Bai and His Highness, Prince Dongling? Yi Jioga asked. "It's a long story." Bai Songling obviously didn't want to say more. She simply said, "Although my surname is Bai, I'm not a member of the Bai family. I just happen to have some connections with His Highness, Prince Dongling. That's why I'm helping him." "I see." That was enough. Yi Jioga didn't expect Bai Songling to tell him the story of her 8 generations of ancestors. Wan Ziang silently took out a bottle of external medicine and placed it in Yi Jioga's hand. "Apply the medicine." "No need. This injury looks terrible, but it's already healed on the inside." Yi Jioga pushed the medicine back and smiled. "Do you really think I don't even have the ability to treat my face?" Bai Songling immediately understood what Yi Jioga meant. He shook his head helplessly. "Even if you want to deal with the Empress and the Crown Prince, there's no need to humiliate your body like this." Yi Jioga didn't want to discuss this topic. He straightened his expression and said solemnly, "Actually, I invited you two here for the demon poison in Prince Dongling." Bai Songling's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't help but ask, "Did you find a way to expel the poison from His Highness?" "That's right. After I went back and carefully read through the medical books grandfather left me, I discovered that Prince Dongling was poisoned with the king poison of a 5th-level demon beast, the Ice Spider King." Yi Jioga said solemnly. "It's actually the king poison?" Bai Songling sucked in a breath of cold air. Wan Ziang frowned. The wrinkles between his brows were so deep that a fly could be squeezed to death. They all knew what the king poison represented, which made their hearts even heavier. "You don't have to worry so much. Actually, there's a way to cure this poison. As long as you find the 5th-level fire dragon grass, I'll be able to concoct the antidote for His Highness." Yi Jioga repeated Zi Shang's words. 5th-level fire dragon grass. Bai Songling's face was filled with bitterness. The most powerful spirit herb in Thunder Nation was only 3rd level. They hadn't heard of a 5th-level spirit herb for many years. Where would they go to find one? Yi Jioga saw that they were in low spirits, so he cheered them on. "If the Empress can find the king poison of a 5th-level demon beast, we can naturally find a 5th-level fire dragon grass as well." You're right." Bai Songling immediately pulled himself together. He planned to inform Dongfang Ke and the Bai family of this news. In any case, the demon poison wouldn't kill Dongfang Ke, so they still had time to search. If 1 year didn't work, then 5 years. If 5 years didn't work, then 10 years. He didn't believe that he couldn't find it. Finding the spirit herb wasn't urgent right now. Yi Jioga asked Wan Ziang, "Big brother Wan, I heard that you went to River Sun to investigate the murder case. How did it go?" "I found a few girls in River Sun who had their blood sucked dry. When I rushed over, those girls had already been cremated. Not even their bones were found." When Wan Ziang said this, his handsome face immediately darkened. Chapter 82. It turned out that this Heyang County magistrate was a brainless idiot. He listened to the rumors and thought that if he didn't immediately cremate the girls who were sucked of their blood, they would become zombies. Therefore, before Wan Ziang could arrive, he burned all the corpses of the murdered girls and killed all the witnesses who had seen the girls. When Wan Ziang came, he still said that he was helping the people get rid of evil. Wan Ziang was so angry that he almost killed that idiot with one palm. Now that idiot had been escorted back to the Ministry of Justice, he was going to let that idiot sit in jail for a long time. Was it the Su family? Yi Jioga was most concerned about this question. "I didn't find any evidence to prove that it was the Su family." Wan Ziang shook his head. Recently, Su Junqing had been as obedient as a baby. He didn't go out of the door, and those brothels that were suspected to be related to him were also very low-key. He didn't dare to buy or sell girls anymore because he couldn't find any clues. Yi Jioga frowned. Su Junqing had always been a watertight person. If he wanted to hide, it would be even harder to find evidence against him. At this time, Yi Jioga suddenly remembered something and quickly said, "Oh right, that nanny Su who fought with me in the palace yesterday, she is also a heretic cultivator." "What?" Bai Songling was shocked. He had heard about Nanny Su from Aunt Hongxiu. It was said that she was the confidant of the Empress. As long as it was related to human life, she would let Nanny Su handle it. These years, countless palace maids and eunuchs died in the hands of Nanny Su. Previously, they thought that the Empress wanted to establish her power, so she used such bloody methods. They didn't expect that she actually did it to let Nanny Su practice martial arts. "We must clearly investigate this Nanny Su's background." Wan Ziang's sculpted features were as solemn as a stone statue. Ever since he saw those girls who were tortured to death by the heretic cultivators in the basement, he hated heretic cultivators and wanted to catch them all in one fell swoop. I always feel that this Nanny Su is not simple. You guys investigate carefully, maybe you can find something. But you guys also have to be careful. Although she is only a high-level soul master, she has cultivated half a body protection aura. She is not so easy to deal with. Yi Jioga recalled the battle with Nanny Su. If Aunt Hongxiu had not invited Emperor Xian Wu over in time, she would have suffered a great loss. She's even cultivated a protective spiritual light. Bai Songling had a bad feeling about this. He and Wan Ziang were intermediate spiritualists, but they were exceptionally gifted and cultivated unique spiritual powers, hence they were not inferior to advanced spiritualists. But if Senior Nurse Su had already cultivated a protective spiritual light, even if the two of them joined forces, they still wouldn't be her match. You don't have to worry. These evil cultivators cultivate the resentment and death aura of humans. As long as it's something with sufficient yang qi, it will be able to restrain them. Yi Jioga remembered what Zi Shang had told her before. What is an item with abundant yang qi? Bai Songling asked. If it was not difficult to obtain, he was prepared to keep a dozen by his side in case of emergencies. It's probably prayer beads for Buddhist cultivators, talismans for Taoist priests, peachwood swords, black dog blood, and the like. Yi Jioga recalled the zombie films she had watched in the past. These seemed to be the treasures used to exorcise evil spirits. There are no Buddhist cultivators or Taoist priests in our Thunder Nation. What is a black dog? A spirit beast? Bai Songling asked in confusion. There were temples and monks in the Thunder Nation, but they were not cultivators. This was because to become a Buddhist cultivator, one must go to the Heaven Zen mountain in the west to be enlightened by a Buddhist cultivator. After becoming a Buddhist cultivator, one would have to deliver all living beings from suffering. The cultivation process was extremely arduous and could not be achieved by sitting in a temple and chanting scriptures. The Taoist priests gathered at the Green Cloud Mountain in the east, which was thousands of miles away from the Thunder Nation. As for the black dog, sorry, there were no such spirit beasts in the Thunder Nation. They could only be found at the 10,000 Beast Mountain. Yi Jioga thought that spiritual power was the most important thing on this continent. She did not expect so many forces to occupy this continent. Indeed, the world was big and full of strange things. She had only seen the tip of the iceberg. Oh yes, we do have peach wood, but I don't know how to make it into a sword, Wan Ziang said. They could not just chop off the peach branches from the trees and use them, right? Wouldn't the evil cultivators be too weak? I've only heard about it. I'm not too sure how to do it. Yi Jioga regretted that she had only focused on the mission in the past and had never learned about exorcism. Idiot. Zi Shang could not stand it anymore and took the initiative to say, the two of them are full of yang qi, so they don't need to look for black dog blood. When they encounter the evil cultivators, they just need to bite the tip of their tongues and spit out their spirit blood to defeat them. Especially Wan Ziang, his spirit root was the most powerful fire spirit root, the thunderbolt fire, which had a natural suppressive effect on evil cultivators. However, his cultivation level was not high enough, which was why he was suppressed by the evil cultivators. When he was successful in his cultivation, he would be able to burn all the filthy things with the thunderbolt fire. Yi Jioga hurriedly conveyed Zi Shang's words to them. Thank you, Lady Yi, for telling us. Bai Songling and Wan Ziang were not afraid of the evil cultivators, but they were uneasy about the unknown. Now that they knew that they could restrain them, they felt a little more confident. It's getting late. Let's stop here today. If there's any news in the future, let's contact each other. Yi Jioga said. They had been talking for more than an hour and had almost finished talking about everything that needed to be talked about. Do you want us to give you a ride? Wan Ziang asked. No need. Yi Jioga was not a child, so she did not need anyone to send her off. She got on the carriage and returned to Purple Forest Park. She found that the fifth aunt and Yi Rui were already waiting inside. Miss, your face? The fifth aunt was shocked when she saw Yi Jioga's face. Father hit me. Yi Jioga sat down and prepared to give the mother and daughter a good lesson. How could father do this to you? Yi Rui raised her eyebrows, and her cute little face was full of anger. Big sister was the person she admired the most. No one could bully her, not even her father. I can't help it. I didn't listen to him and kowtow to the Empress and the Crown Prince to apologize. Yi Jioga sighed, pretending to be sad and wronged. The fifth aunt opened her mouth, but did not know how to comfort her. No one knew better than her how violent Yi Yuxuan was. She had been kicked by Yi Yuxuan last time, and her body had not recovered yet. Yi Rui said angrily, Big sister didn't do anything wrong. Why should you apologize to the Empress and the Crown Prince? Kowtowing to apologize? Father was too humiliating. It was the Crown Prince who had hooked up with second sister, hated Big sister, and even wanted to kill her. Father clearly knew that it was not Big sister's fault, but he still blamed it all on Big sister. He could not tell right from wrong, good from evil. He was a father in vain. Chapter 83. In father's eyes, there is no kinship, only benefits. No matter how good he is to you now, he is just using you, understand? Yi Jioga didn't want to teach Yi Rui so quickly. But what happened before had made her know that the Yi family was vicious, even children were not let off. Instead of letting Yi Rui die in confusion, it was better to let her grow up and find a way to protect herself, instead of foolishly selling herself to Yi Yuxuan. The fifth aunt felt that such a dark matter shouldn't be told to her daughter. Just as she was about to dissuade her, she saw Yi Rui nodding her head vigorously. I know, father just wants me to help him concoct pills. Although Yi Rui was young, she grew up suffering. Some time ago, she experienced a terrifying kidnapping incident, so her mind had begun to mature. She already knew who was really treating her and who was just pretending. Good little sister, just keep it in your heart. Don't ever show it in front of father. Otherwise, big sister will end up like you tomorrow. Yi Jioga purposely put his terrifying pig head in front of Yi Rui. Big sister, does it hurt? Yi Rui sniffled, tears welling up in her eyes. She wanted to touch Yi Jioga's face but didn't dare to. It's okay, it doesn't hurt anymore. Yi Jioga saw that the little girl was crying and felt a little embarrassed. Oh right, I made a medicine for you. See if it can be used. Yi Rui turned around and took out a small jade bottle from the gifts on the table. She said shyly, this is my first time concocting pills, I don't know if it's good or not. Okay, I'll try. Yi Jioga opened the jade bottle and smelled it. The smell of medicine was quite strong, but the heat was a bit lacking. But for a little girl who was concocting pills for the first time, it was already very good. Wood and fire spirit roots were different, no wonder Yi Yuxuan treasured it so much. Rui heard that you were beaten by master yesterday, so she immediately made this medicine. The fifth aunt said. Her daughter's first concoction wasn't for her, nor for master, but for Big Miss. It was impossible for her not to feel sour. But on second thought, the first miss was very affectionate and loyal to them. She had saved them from danger several times. Her daughter always thought of Big Miss, and was also a grateful person. If a person knew how to be grateful, they wouldn't be that bad. Thinking of this, she felt a little better. Little girl, at least you have a conscience. Yi Jioga tapped Yi Rui's forehead, and then said to Mother Qing, bring me the pill refining manual that I prepared. During this period of time, Yi Jioga had been sorting out his alchemy insights. On one hand, he was revising, and on the other hand, he wanted to leave it for Yi Rui to see. Although Yi Yuxuan gave her a lot of alchemy books, the contents were too obscure. It was too difficult for a 7-year-old girl. She had purposely written it in plain Mandarin so that Yi Rui could compare with it. She believed that Yi Rui would improve a lot. Thank you, big sister. Yi Rui took the handwritten notes and couldn't wait to read them. After reading a few lines, he was immediately captivated. Today was her first time concocting medicine, so she encountered many problems. After looking through the pill book her father had given her, she still didn't understand much. Now that he saw the letter from Big Sister, he immediately came to a realization. It was as if he had been enlightened. She even had a feeling that Big Sister was even more powerful than her father. Alright, go back and read it again. Don't disturb eldest young mistress's rest, fifth mistress advised softly. This daughter of hers would become obsessed with alchemy books and would not listen no matter what she said. Oh. Yi Rui's eyes were still glued to the book. Without raising her head, she said to Yi Jioga, big sister, then rest well. Little sister will come and see you again when I'm free. When you go back, you are not allowed to waste your time reading. Otherwise, I will confiscate all of these handwritten notes. Yi Jioga took the book from her hand and threatened. I understand. Big sister, please return the book to me. Yi Rui said pitifully. She originally wanted to stay up late to finish reading Big Sister's handwritten notes. But after hearing these words, she didn't dare to do so. Eldest young mistress, you have helped this concubine greatly, fifth mistress said gratefully. Rui, this girl was getting more and more disobedient as she grew older. Only Yi Jioga was able to control her. Go back and read well. If there's anything you don't understand, come and ask me. Yi Jioga rubbed Yi Rui's head and asked Mother Qing to send them out. In the next few days, Yi Jioga used the excuse of recuperating to close the door and refused to meet anyone. When Yi Yuxuan heard the rumors outside, he came to find her. He was also blocked outside and was so angry that he almost tore down Purple Forest Park. But he was still almost there. Right now, the rumors outside were in chaos. They all said that he sold his daughter to gain the favor of the Empress and the Crown Prince. Many of his alchemy colleagues were secretly laughing at him. Now, he didn't dare to make a move against Yi Jioga. Unfortunately, the crown prince urged him every day. He might as well write a letter and directly tell the crown prince that Yi Jioga was unwilling to marry him as a side concubine and that he should think of a way himself. In the Fengyi Palace. After the crown prince conveyed Yi Yuxuan's words, he tactfully said, "Mother, Yi Jioga is like a stone in a latrine pit, smelly and hard. It's impossible for him to marry this son as a side concubine." If this suggestion hadn't been raised by the empress, he wouldn't have asked Yi Yuxuan even if he was beaten to death. Ben Gong is merely testing Yi Yuxuan's attitude. The empress indifferently said, "As long as he is willing to help you, it doesn't matter if he succeeds or not. Mother is wise." The crown prince immediately flattered. The empress picked up a celadon teacup and moistened her throat before asking, "What does the Su family say about Su Yufeng and her daughter?" This mother and daughter pair had been confined by Yi Yuxuan for so long, yet the Su family hadn't said a single word. It was truly strange. "This son has asked Su Junqing. His meaning is that it's not time yet." When the crown prince thought of that brat Su Junqing, he felt angry. At that time, he had even probed Su Junqing about Yi Yu and the treasure map. In the end, Su Junqing didn't know anything. He even had the face to complain tearfully that his medicine storehouse on the western main street had suffered heavy losses and wanted the crown prince to compensate him. He wished he could give Su Junqing a slap. If it weren't for the fact that he still had use for Su Junqing, he would definitely have found someone to behead Su Junqing. Old Master Su should be coming out of seclusion soon, the empress said pensively. If old Master Su succeeded in breaking through to the spiritual master level, he would have the confidence to support Su Yufeng and her daughter. That should be the case. The crown prince nodded. He had also thought of this point, which was why he hadn't acted against Su Junqing. "What about Dongfang Ke?" the empress asked again. During this period of time, he has been in close contact with the Bai family. It seems like he's looking for something. However, the news is very well hidden, so we can't find out what it is. We only know that it's a few spiritual medicines. The crown prince didn't really care about this matter. These past few years, the Bai family had been thinking of all sorts of ways to cure Dongfang Quebec. As long as they heard that it was a useful spiritual medicine, they wouldn't let it go. After stopping them a few times and losing a few batches of people, they were too lazy to care anymore. Chapter 84. Yes. The empress didn't care about the Bai family and asked about something else. "What has that damned girl, Yi Jioga, been doing recently?" The crown prince's heart skipped a beat. He looked at the empress carefully and replied, "I heard she's recuperating at home." "Recuperating? Recuperating?" the empress asked curiously. She lived in the back of the palace and wasn't well informed. The people around her didn't dare spread rumors to her, so she still didn't know that Yi Jioga had tricked her. Yi Jioga was beaten by Yi Yuxuan after returning home. "I heard it was very bad. His face is swollen like a pig's head. I'm afraid he's going to be disfigured." The crown prince was very happy when he heard about it. Yi Jioga's face was already full of scars. How could he show his face after being beaten up? Idiot. The empress's delicate brows were slightly twisted. She was obviously extremely angry. He was beaten right after leaving the palace. Wasn't this telling everyone that she was unhappy with him? The crown prince didn't say anything. The rumors outside were very bad. He was trying to put out the fire and didn't dare tell the empress at all. The empress quickly suppressed her anger and ordered the crown prince, "Forget it. Let's deal with this later. The alchemy conference is about to begin. Remember to prepare in advance." "Yes." The crown prince nodded respectfully but felt a little strange. The alchemy conference was held every year. The ones who won were always the scions of the aristocratic families. What was there to prepare? But since the empress had ordered him, he could only do as she said. "I'm tired. You can leave." After the Empress sent the crown prince away, she sat on the phoenix throne and closed her eyes in deep thought. Night fell slowly, and the magnificent hall was plunged into darkness. Without the Empress's order, the maids didn't dare to come in and light the lamps. Nanny Sue appeared silently in front of the Empress, with a faint smell of blood on her. "Is everything done?" The Empress closed her eyes and gently rubbed her temples. "Don't worry, Your Highness. Those talkative maids have been dealt with," Nanny Sue said respectfully. Her murky old eyes still had a faint red glow. It was a state where the evil skill hadn't dissipated. "That's right, Yi Jioga is only at the primary stage of cultivation. How could you be injured by her? Could it be that she really has some sort of treasure on her?" The Empress slightly opened her eyes. That day in Jinxiu Palace, Nanny Sue hurriedly went into closed-door cultivation after being tricked by Yi Jioga. He only came out today after absorbing the blood of several palace maids and eunuchs. That was why she didn't have the chance to ask about this until now. Although that damned girl's cultivation is not high, she cultivates the most orthodox lightning spiritual power. She is also sinister and cunning, and is good at using poison. This old servant was not paying attention and fell into her trap. Nanny Sue said bitterly, "But that wicked girl has no ability. If the Emperor hadn't suddenly appeared, I was confident that I could have killed her on the spot." "So, that damned girl doesn't have any treasures on her?" the Empress asked. "I really didn't find any treasure on her," Nanny Sue replied honestly. The Empress frowned slightly. She had seen the situation at the time. Yi Jioga was at the end of his rope. If he really had something that could save his life, he wouldn't have hidden it. Maybe that damned girl was just lucky. "Oh right, Your Highness, my senior sent a message saying that he has already left River Yang County and will probably arrive in Shangjing a few days before the alchemy conference." Nanny Sue mentioned another matter. "Got it. I will get the crown prince to receive him." "Oh right, tell him to restrain himself and don't cause any trouble," the Empress warned. She had helped them clean up enough messes over the years. "Yes, this old servant will try to pass on your message." Nanny Sue bowed. That senior of hers was not someone to be trifled with. He would probably treat her words as farts. Forget it, she was only responsible for passing on the message. The rest was up to him. "If there's nothing else, you can leave." The Empress waved her hand. "Yes." Nanny Sue slowly retreated and disappeared into the darkness. At this moment, Yi Jioga was frowning. She sat in front of the dressing mirror and looked at the scars on her face with deep hatred. As the bruises on her face gradually disappeared, the black scars also fell off. She could already see a small patch of white and delicate skin near her forehead. Looking at the way the black scars fell off, she reckoned that when the wounds on her face were completely healed, she would return to her true appearance. Damn, this was not what she wanted. "Zishang, tell me honestly, what did you do to me?" Yi Jioga asked seriously. "Nothing." Zishang replied lazily. He just didn't like the black scars on Yi Jioga's face and accidentally knocked them off. "Humph, don't lie to me. You must want to turn me into a peerless beauty. When the wild wind and lascivious butterflies pounce on me, you can blame it on me and find an excuse to punish me." Yi Jioga suspected that this perverted snake was addicted to punishment and deliberately set a trap for her. Little Jioga is really smart. Next time, let's change the method of punishment, okay? Zishang's low and charming laughter rang out. It was like a feather brushing against the tip of her ear. She couldn't help but tremble. "Okay, my ass." Yi Jioga's words were hard but her heart was soft. Although the result of the punishment last time was very comfortable, the process was painful. She didn't want to go through it again. Then it settled. Zishang ignored Yi Jioga's refusal and said that he would definitely make her more satisfied next time. Pervert. Yi Jioga fiercely spat in her heart. At this time, Mother Qing knocked on the door and happily said, "Eldest miss, Lord Bai Songling sent an invitation. He invites you to the Yuwu Tea House's ice and snow private room in the afternoon. She knew that eldest miss was charming. That bastard crown prince must be blind to not see eldest miss's good side. Got it. Yi Jioga picked up the charcoal pen on the table and painted the exposed white skin on her forehead. Only then did she change her clothes and wear a curtain hat. This time, she didn't take off the curtain hat. The waiter who received her probably already received the order and quickly brought her to the ice and snow private room. Other than Bai Songling, Dongfang Ke was also sitting inside. He sat in a wheelchair and wore a light green brocade robe embroidered with bamboo leaves. His hair was tied up in a jade crown and he looked extremely handsome. His originally gloomy black eyes couldn't help but light up the moment Yi Jioga walked in. His handsome and outstanding face seemed to be covered in a layer of dazzling light. This brat must have taken a fancy to you. Zi Shang saw through Dongfang Ke's thoughts with a glance. Damn you, last time you also said that Wan Xiang had taken a fancy to me. Are you crazy? Yi Jioga silently rolled her eyes at Zi Shang in her heart. Her expression was normal as she greeted Dongfang Quebec. I didn't think that your highness would also be here. It can't be a coincidence, right? No, I specifically asked Bai Songling to invite you out. Dongfang Ke couldn't invite Yi Jioga, so he could only ask Bai Songling for help. Chapter 85. I see. Yi Jioga glanced at Bai Songling. This guy was really ungrateful, he didn't even tell him in advance. Ahem, actually, His Highness wants to ask you about the 5th stage fire dragon grass. Bai Songling smiled awkwardly. He originally wanted to tell Yi Jioga in advance, but Dongfang Ke didn't let him, saying that he was afraid Yi Jioga wouldn't come if she knew. What a joke, with Yi Jioga's fierce personality, how could he be afraid of him? Dongfang Ke continued Bai Songling's topic and asked, Miss Yi, may I know where the 5th stage fire dragon grass grows? Although he had already sent the news back to the Bai clan, it was still very difficult to find a 5th stage spirit grass in this vast mountain. The fire dragon grass likes the sun and has a strong nature. It likes to grow near volcanoes or places where lava flows. Yi Jioga had painstakingly gotten this information from Zi Shang. Volcanoes? Lava? Dongfang Ke was slightly stunned. What was that? It's a volcano that spits fire, and a red river flows out from it. It's even hotter than molten iron, Yi Jioga explained. There's actually such a magical mountain in this world? Bai Songling felt that it was very unbelievable. The area around Shangjing was mostly plains, and there were very few mountains, let alone volcanoes. Dongfang Ke muttered to himself for a moment before saying, I've read a passage in a travel book before. It says that to the south of the river, thousands of miles away, there is a volcano that can spew out a red river. Wherever it passes, plants wither and birds and beasts die. Could it be the volcano and lava you mentioned? It should be. Yi Jioga nodded. She had never seen the volcanoes on these 1,000 continents, so she couldn't be sure. When Bai Songling heard that it was thousands of miles south of the river, he couldn't help but sigh. Transportation was not very developed these days. People used horses to travel, and there were very few who had spirit beasts. A journey of thousands of miles would take more than half a year even on planes. If they encountered a dangerous mountain, it would be even worse. Thank you, Miss Yi, for telling me. Dongfang Ke thanked her indifferently. As long as there was hope, he would definitely find it. Your Highness is too polite. Yi Jioga smiled and asked, Your Highness, you didn't ask me out just to talk about this, right? That's right. Seeing that Yi Jioga was easy to talk to, Dongfang Ke didn't hide anything, directly said his purpose. I came to ask you to help me save someone. Who? Yi Jioga asked curiously. For Dongfang Ke to personally come and beg her, this person should not be simple. A woman who can fight against the Empress, Dongfang Ke said solemnly. Who is it? Yi Jioga raised his eyebrows in surprise. It was amazing that there was still a woman who could fight against the ruthless empress. Noble consort Shi, Dongfang Ke said word by word. So it's her. Yi Jioga suddenly realized. This imperial concubine, she was very famous. She was of noble birth and was the Empress Dowager's grandniece, which meant that she was Emperor Xian Wu's cousin. It was said that not only was she unparalleled in beauty, but she was also considerate, gentle, and very considerate. At that time, the Empress Dowager originally wanted to make imperial concubine Shi the legal concubine of Emperor Xian Wu, who had not yet ascended the throne. Afterwards, imperial concubine Shi took the initiative to become a concubine and gave the position of legal concubine to the current Empress Shui. Emperor Xian Wu successfully ascended the throne with the support of the Shui family. After Bai Linglong entered the palace, imperial concubine Shi also took good care of her. When Emperor Xian Wu proposed Bai Linglong to be the imperial concubine, Bai Linglong refused, saying that imperial concubine Shi was more qualified than her. Afterwards, it was imperial concubine Shi who personally persuaded Bai Linglong to be the imperial concubine, and imperial concubine Shi was promoted to imperial concubine. The two of them were like sisters and served Emperor Xian Wu together. This became a story that spread. Afterwards, Bai Linglong died of illness and imperial concubine Shi also fell ill. After that, there was no news of her. Some people said that she went to the imperial temple to accompany the ancient Buddha. Imperial concubine Shi and my imperial mother were like sisters. Not long after my imperial mother passed away, she contracted a strange disease. Her face was full of tumors, and even the spirit doctors couldn't cure it. She went to the imperial temple to help guard the ancestors' graves. If you can cure her strange disease, she can return to the palace, Dongfang Ke said. He wasn't sure if his imperial mother was the woman his father loved the most, but he was sure that imperial concubine Shi was the woman his father respected the most. Okay, I'll cure it, Yi Jioga said without hesitation. As long as she could cause trouble for the empress, she was willing to pay for it, let alone cure someone. Imperial concubine Shi is in my residence now, she can see you anytime. The first thing Dongfang Ke did after coming out of the palace was to send a letter to the imperial temple to ask imperial concubine Shi to come out. Imperial concubine Shi originally refused, but after hearing that Yi Jioga had received the true teachings of Yun Wei Si and could even cure the demon poison in her body, she agreed to give it a try. Then let's go now. Yi Jioga said impatiently. The sooner imperial concubine Shi's illness was cured, the sooner they could stab the empress. Not many people know that imperial concubine Shi has entered the capital. In order to prevent the news from spreading, I'll have to trouble eldest Miss Yi to follow me through the secret passage, Dongfang Ke said cautiously. Sure, Yi Jioga nodded. She originally thought that the secret passage was outside, but she didn't expect that Bai Songling would take down a painting of admiring plum blossoms from the wall of the private room and forcefully push down a floor tile, revealing a passage. This Yuwu tea house is His Highness' property, Bai Songling explained. So that's how it is. Yi Jioga discovered that Dongfang Ke was really a maniac for secret passages. It was fine that the splendid palace had a secret passage, but he didn't even let go of a tea house. Just how many more secrets did he have? Eldest Miss Yi, please. Bai Songling called out, then pushed Dongfang Ke's wheelchair into the secret passage. Yi Jioga followed behind them, and after walking for about the time it took for 2 incense sticks to burn, they finally arrived at a residence behind the Wang residence. Following this, Yi Jioga changed into the cloak that Dongfang Ke had prepared, and followed them into the Wang residence through the back door. Following the long corridor, they arrived in front of a remote courtyard. The doors and windows of this courtyard were tightly shut, the flowers and trees in the courtyard were withered, and there wasn't a single person in sight. It was hard to imagine that someone like imperial concubine Shi would live in such a place. Nanny Zhou, I'll have to trouble you to help this prince pass a message. Just say that this prince has already brought young Lady Yi. Dongfang Ke called out softly from the door. It could be seen that he was very respectful towards this noble consort Shi. The door creaked open. A short and fat, amiable-looking Momo bowed towards Dongfang Ke and said softly, "This servant greets your highness." The empress said to let eldest Miss Yi enter by herself. "All right." Dongfang Ke looked apologetically towards Yi Jioga and said softly, "Ever since imperial concubine she fell ill, she hasn't been very willing to see people." Yi Jioga could understand that no matter which peerless beauty it was, after becoming ugly, she wouldn't want others to see her. Chapter 86. "Miss Yi, please." Nanny Zhou bowed to Yi Jioga and turned to go in. Yi Jioga followed her into the room. The room wasn't big, but the furnishings inside were extremely exquisite. The furniture was all made of good mahogany. Although there were palace lanterns hanging in the four corners of the room, the light was still very dim. There was a peony incense burner in the corner, and smoke curled up. There was also a bit of rotten smell in the incense. If one didn't smell it carefully, they wouldn't be able to smell it. Nanny Zhou brought Yi Jioga to the bead curtain at the door of the inner room. The bead curtain was all made of thumb-sized southern beads. Under the light, it shone with a warm light. It could be said to be extremely luxurious. It could be seen that this imperial concubine she was a person who lived an exquisite life. It was probably related to her noble voice. Nanny Zhou didn't immediately bring Yi Jioga in. Instead, she bowed outside the bead curtain and said, "Imperial concubine, Miss Yi is here. You may leave." A clear and elegant voice came from inside. "Yes." Nanny Zhou bowed and went out quietly. Yi Jioga stood in front of the bead curtain. He didn't know whether to go in or out. He felt inexplicably awkward. Fortunately, imperial concubine she quickly spoke. "Miss Yi, I heard that you used to be a famous waste in Shangjing. How did you suddenly become enlightened?" Although imperial concubine she's words were very impolite, her voice was gentle, so Yi Jioga couldn't be angry. "That's just the misunderstanding of Shangjing people," Yi Jioga replied indifferently. She couldn't delve into her background, so it was better to let people guess her in the clouds. "Hee, your answer is quite like Master Yun's style." Imperial concubine she smiled lightly. "You've seen my grandfather?" Yi Jioga asked strangely. According to the time when imperial concubine she got sick, grandfather should have already left Shangjing. "I once met Master Yun in the imperial temple. Unfortunately, Master Yun was in a hurry and only left a pill for me before leaving. I waited in the imperial temple for so many years, but he didn't come back." Imperial concubine she's tone was filled with resentment. At that time, her heart was already dead and she just wanted to wait for death. Master Yun gave her hope, but then he disappeared for more than 10 years. She looked forward to it day after day. That kind of torment was really worse than death. "Noble consort she, can you tell me what happened at that time?" Yi Jioga had been tracking down his grandfather for a long time and finally found some useful clues. He was a little excited. "No." Imperial consort she smiled and said, "Unless you can cure this consort's illness." "Okay." If Yi Jioga had only used 80% of his effort before, now he was using 12%. "Then come in." "Noble consort," she said. Yi Jioga lifted the bead curtain and walked in. The lights inside were even dimmer, with only 2 beautiful palace lanterns illuminating the doorway. The beauty in the painting shone in the candlelight, and her lips, which were painted scarlet, were particularly eye-catching. The smell of the incense became even stronger. It was so strong that it almost made people cry. Of course, the rancid smell became even stronger. Noble consort she was sitting at the table. She wore a light red gauze dress, and her figure was very graceful. Sitting there without moving, she exuded a kind of graceful feeling, comparable to a young girl. It was said that noble consort she was very good at dancing. Her wind's spiritual power allowed her to dance on the lake. Those who saw her dance would undoubtedly worship her as a goddess. At this moment, her face was covered with a veil, only revealing a pair of clear and beautiful eyes. It was like the surface of a lake in spring, reflecting the infinite spring scenery, making people intoxicated with just one look. Sit. Noble consort, she gently called out to Yijioga. Yijioga sat in front of her, and the rancid smell hidden in the incense became even stronger. It was obvious that it came from noble consort Shi. Yijioga's expression didn't change as he said to noble consort Shi, "Lady, can you please stretch out your hand and let me take your pulse?" "Sure." Noble consort Shi placed her hand on the table. Her exposed wrist was as white jade, tender and smooth to the touch. It was even more well-maintained than a young girl's hand. Yijioga calmed down and helped her take her pulse. He saw that her pulse was heavy, only beating once after a long time, as if it was being suppressed by something. This kind of pulse was only the pulse of an old person whose internal organs were starting to deteriorate. It could be said that it was no different from a dead person. The other hand. Yijioga gave noble consort Shi another hand to take her pulse. Unexpectedly, the pulse of this hand was fast and thin, like the sound of horse hooves. Two hands, completely different pulse. This was simply unheard of. "Did Miss Yi see anything?" Noble consort Shi asked indifferently. There wasn't a trace of expectation in her tone, and it was obvious that she didn't trust her very much. "Lady, can you let me see your face with the early summer veil?" Yijioga said. She already had a guess in her heart, but she still needed to verify it. "No." Imperial concubine, she refused indifferently. "Unless you can tell me what illness I have, you can go out directly." "Lady Shi, you're poisoned," Yijioga said without hesitation. "Impossible." Noble consort, she shook her head and put away her hand. She said coldly, "I also thought that I was poisoned before, but after visiting all the spirit doctors in the world and eating countless antidotes, they all said that I had a strange disease, not poison. That's because they couldn't find the cause of the poisoning," Yijioga said with certainty. Hee. Noble consort, she couldn't help but laugh, then said in a sarcastic tone, "These spirit doctors included your grandfather. He all said that I wasn't poisoned. Are you going to refute your grandfather's words?" This was a bit awkward. Yijioga had always claimed that he had received his grandfather's medical skills. Now that he was overturning his grandfather's words, wasn't that slapping his own mouth? She thought for a moment and then said, "My grandfather's medical skills are better than mine, so he must have his reasons for his diagnosis. I can't see him now, so I don't know what he is basing his diagnosis on, but from my perspective, you are poisoned." Noble consort, she was silent for a moment, then chuckled and said, "Actually, your grandfather didn't even have time to take my pulse before he left in a hurry." Yijioga was really curious about the scene at that time, but seeing noble consort Shi's attitude, it was impossible for her to tell him. He could only helplessly say, "Lady, the most important thing to cure a disease is to be sure of the true condition. If I wasn't firm enough, wouldn't I be delaying your illness? If you weren't firm enough, you wouldn't be worthy of being Grandmaster Yun's granddaughter, much less treating me." Noble consort, she said. That was just a test she gave Yijioga. She had experienced too many disappointments over the years, and she didn't want to be disappointed again. Chapter 87. Then can I look at your face now? Yijioga wasn't angry. She knew that people who had been sick for a long time would have strange temperaments. Imperial consort, she was actually very cultured. "Yes, but let me remind you, it's best if you show an expression that you shouldn't. My temper isn't good, so I might get angry." Imperial consort, she said gently. Yes. Yijioga had seen all kinds of storms, so Imperial consort, she's words didn't scare her. Imperial consort, she raised her jade-like right hand and slowly took off the left button of her veil. As the veil moved, the left side of her face was gradually revealed. Her skin was as smooth as jade, without a single wrinkle. She was beautiful and noble, like an inviolable fairy. Yijioga's gaze followed the movement of Imperial consort Shi's veil. When she saw the right side of her face, even though she was mentally prepared, she still couldn't help but tremble. A disgusting feeling welled up in her heart, but she forcefully suppressed it. Imperial Consort Shi's right face was filled with small yellow lumps. It was filled with pustules, and many of the lumps had already burst, flowing out yellowish-white pus with traces of blood. Some of the skin had even festered into pits, emitting a very strong stench, like a corpse rotting in a smelly ditch. It could be said that the more beautiful Imperial Consort Shi's left face was, the more disgusting her right face was. The strong contrast and conflict between the two made one unable to look directly at it. Yi Jioga quickly calmed herself down and opened her spiritual eye to carefully examine Imperial Consort Shi's face. In the range of his spiritual eye, he saw that there was green spirit energy flowing under the left side of Imperial Consort Shi's face, but the meridians on the right side of her face were all blocked by black particles. Not to mention spirit energy, even blood couldn't flow. If it weren't for the faint purple spiritual light in her heart meridian that was constantly sending miracles to the right side of her face wouldn't just be rotting and oozing pus. Instead, it would have been reduced to bones. Imperial Consort Shi stared at Yi Jioga's eyes, waiting for her to reveal an expression of disgust, or shock. However, she didn't expect her to quickly restrain all her emotions and look at her face like she was studying something. She had only seen this expression on an old spirit doctor's face before. At that time, he was treating a sick child. That old spirit doctor was the only person who could help her suppress her illness, but it was a pity that he passed away very quickly. Later, his disciple inherited his medical skills and continued to treat her. Although his disciple's medical skills weren't great, it was still passable. Yi Jioga was so young, yet he had the essence of that old spirit doctor. Noble Consort Shi was very surprised. Just this point alone was enough to let her heart, which had been silent for a long time, finally give birth to a trace of hope. Empress, may I ask, what kind of pills did you consume previously? Yi Jioga finally confirmed the cause of her illness. He closed his spiritual eye and inquired carefully. Her current cultivation level was not high enough, and opening her spirit essence for a long period of time would harm her. You've been taking pills to promote blood circulation and remove blood stasis. Your face is also covered with that kind of ointment. Which old spirit doctor had prescribed these for her? Although it couldn't cure her, it greatly alleviated her pain. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to endure it for so many years. Can you show me the ointment? Yi Jioga said. Sure. Noble Consort Shi stood up and took out an exquisite white porcelain bottle from the cabinet and placed it in front of Yi Jioga. Yi Jioga opened the bottle and saw that it was filled with a dark green ointment that emitted a faint smell of grass. She sniffed it carefully, then used her hand to pick it up and tested it. Finally, she said with certainty, "This ointment is the thing that caused your illness to worsen." What? Noble Consort Shi thought that she had heard wrongly. I don't know who gave you this ointment, but I can only say that they weren't saving you, they were harming you. Yi Jioga said word by word. How is that possible? Noble Consort Shi didn't believe him and said, previously, my face was rotting very badly and my entire body was sore and painful. It was only after I used this spirit doctor's prescription that I started to slowly get better. Did you have the symptoms just now because you ate the pill my grandfather gave you? Yi Jioga asked back. Noble Consort Shi slowly nodded, as if she had realized something. The pill that my grandfather gave you was to detoxify the poison in your body. If you had waited for your rotten flesh to fall off and then considered finding a reliable spirit doctor to detoxify the remaining poison in your body, you would have slowly gotten better. Yi Jioga sighed. Noble Consort Shi shouldn't have suffered for so many years. However, she didn't believe in her grandfather and ran to believe in other spirit doctors, which was why all her efforts were in vain. Noble Consort Shi's expression was wooden. She remembered that before the old spirit doctor died, he looked at her anxiously but couldn't say a word. At that time, she thought that he was regretting not being able to continue treating her. Now that she thought about it, the old spirit doctor was repenting before he died. That's not right. Noble Consort Shi frowned. She remembered that when she first used the old spirit doctor's medicine, her face still continued to fester, but it wasn't as itchy. Later, the old spirit doctor suddenly changed the prescription and died a few days later. Then, his disciple appeared and continued to use the old spirit doctor's modified prescription to treat her. In that case, the old spirit doctor was harmed because of her, and that disciple was the culprit that caused her illness to worsen. Xue Mingzhu, that damned bitch, actually chased her all the way to the royal temple and deliberately continued to harm her. Xue Mingzhu, if you don't die, I won't be able to rest in peace. Noble consort, she gritted her teeth, her face distorted. The pustules on the right side of her face instantly burst, and blood splattered everywhere. It looked extremely terrifying. Yi Jioga saw that noble consort Shi's situation wasn't right and felt a little anxious. He quickly inserted 2 needles into her huku and gugu acupoints. Noble consort Shi opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood, and her expression gradually eased. She took out a palace handkerchief and wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. She looked at Yi Jioga gratefully and said in a low voice, "Thank you." If Yi Jioga hadn't helped her force out this mouthful of blood, she would have fainted on the spot. "Your Highness, it's not too late for a gentleman to take revenge. As long as the poison in your body is slowly treated, there's still hope for you to recover your appearance. There's no hurry to take revenge then," Yi Jioga advised. "You have a way to cure my poison?" Noble consort, she was stunned. When she heard Yi Jioga's tone just now, she thought that she had missed Great Master Yun's antidote and was already incurable. "Although it's a little difficult, it's not impossible. If your Highness believes me, I'm willing to give it a try." Yi Jioga had deliberately misled a noble consort Shi just now. She was already incurable. Because noble consort Shi was too arrogant, if he didn't suppress her, she probably wouldn't listen to him. It was very difficult to cure a disobedient patient. Chapter 88. I believe you. As long as you can cure me, I'll give you anything. Imperial consort She finally took off her arrogant mask and revealed the weakness of a patient. "I don't want anything, I just want you to rest well. You just spat out blood, so you should rest well. We'll talk when you wake up," Yi Jioga said gently. "You're leaving?" Imperial consort Shi's eyes were filled with panic. Master Yun's sudden departure had left a shadow in her heart. "I'm going to discuss the prescription with His Highness. Some spirit herbs might be hard to get, so I need to think of a way. But don't worry, as long as you wake up, call me and I'll be back." Yi Jioga knew that Imperial consort Shi was at her weakest and had to be comforted patiently. "Okay." Imperial consort Shi nodded. She also felt tired, so she called Zhou Momo to come in and help her rest. Only then did Yi Jioga walk out of the room. Dongfang Ke was still waiting outside. His straight back was as sturdy as a pine tree. Seeing Yi Jioga come out, his handsome face couldn't help but reveal an expectant expression. "How was it? Is your Highness planning to talk to me about Her Highness's illness here?" Yi Jioga didn't want Imperial consort Shi to know. Dongfang Ke immediately understood and said, "I've already prepared some refreshments. Miss Yi, please do me the honor." With that, he brought Yi Jioga to his study room. Just like last time, there was a pot of spirit tea, a box of rose pastries, and this time, there was also a plate of peach blossom cakes. This time, Yi Jioga was not in the mood to taste it. He drank a mouthful of spirit tea and organized his thoughts before asking Dongfang Ke, "How was noble consort Shi poisoned back then? Can your Highness tell me the details of the situation?" "Poisoned? Do you think Imperial consort Shi got poisoned and not sick?" Dongfang Ke was startled. Then, he revealed an expression of, "I knew it," and said in a low voice, "I knew it." "Since you knew, why didn't you get the spirit doctors to check?" Yi Jioga asked curiously. "I did. She ate all sorts of detoxification pills. Father even got 1,000 mountain snow lotus for her to eat, but it didn't have any effect. Afterwards, those spirit doctors all said that Her Highness was sick. When Dongfang Ke said this, a trace of viciousness flashed across his handsome face. It's all because of those damned quacks that delayed Her Highness's illness. Actually, you can't blame those spirit doctors for not being able to tell, Yi Jioga said. What do you mean? Dongfang Ke's long eyebrows raised slightly. Because the symptoms of noble consort she's poisoning were suppressed by her illness, those spirit doctors couldn't tell that the Empress was poisoned and thought that she was sick. Yi Jioga explained. What do you mean? Dongfang Ke was confused. Was imperial consort she sick or poisoned? First, tell me how her ladyship was poisoned. Yi Jioga changed the topic again. Because her guess was a little unpleasant, she couldn't say it out loud. Zhou Mama has always been serving by the Empress' side. I'll ask her to come and talk to you. Dongfang Ke called Lei Peng over and told him to invite Zhou Mama. Before long, Nanny Zhou came over. Nurse Zhou, eldest Miss Yi wants to ask you about the circumstances of the Empress's illness. Tell her in detail. Dongfang Ke instructed. Yes. Zhou Mama nodded. Only then did she start to recall the circumstances of imperial consort Shi's illness. At that time, the imperial consort had just passed away. Imperial consort Shi was too sad and fell ill. At first, she was just annoyed and couldn't eat. Later on, it gradually developed into a tumor on her face. The tumor grew like wild grass and covered half of her face and body in an instant. Emperor Xian Wu was shocked and immediately invited a spirit doctor to treat her. At that time, the Empress ate a lot of medicine and her illness kept recurring. She vomited and had diarrhea. In the end, she even bled. The Empress's heart was like dead ashes. She was afraid that if she dragged it on, Emperor Xian Wu would hate her, so she decided to go to the imperial temple to guard her grandmother's grave. After Yi Jioga heard this, she was silent for a moment before asking, before imperial consort Shi fell ill, was the Kuei water normal? Her ladyship's body has been delicate since she was young. The Kuei water has always been abnormal. Sometimes it would come early, sometimes it would come later. She wouldn't even come once in a few months. Zhou Mama carefully said. Why didn't you invite a spirit doctor to treat the Empress? Yi Jioga asked curiously. The Kuei water was so chaotic that it was very harmful to women. It could even affect their children. Imperial consort she was of noble birth. Inviting a spirit doctor to treat her should be a very simple matter. We did. Her ladyship ate it for a few days and then refused. Zhou Mama said helplessly. Imperial consort she loved beauty since she was young. She also liked to practice dancing. In order to maintain a light body, she strictly controlled her diet. Thus, the Kuei water had always been abnormal. Those spirit doctors' prescriptions were all to increase her appetite. Of course, she wasn't willing. It wasn't until Bai Linglong gave birth to the smart and cute Dongfang Ke that she had the thought of having a child. Only then did she start to treat her body. Unfortunately, before she could get pregnant, she was killed by the Empress. So that's how it is. Yi Jioga nodded. This verified her guess. Dongfang Ke heard them talking about the Kuei water as if there was no one else around and felt inexplicably awkward. Seeing that Yi Jioga was silent, he asked, Big Miss Yi, you still haven't told me what illness imperial consort she had and what poison she was poisoned with. Yi Jioga came back to her senses. After thinking it over, she said, if I'm not wrong, imperial consort she's illness was because she didn't take care of herself after her miscarriage. That's why there was blood clot in the palace and suppressed the symptoms of her poisoning. That's why those spirit doctors didn't notice that she was poisoned. What did you say? Dongfang Ke wondered if there was something wrong with his ears. Miscarriage? Imperial consort she had a miscarriage. What did that mean? Imperial consort she should have been pregnant before she got sick. That's why she had a bad appetite, chest tightness, and nausea. Yi Jioga really didn't know what to say. A dignified imperial consort didn't even know that she was pregnant or that she had a miscarriage. She didn't know if they should say that they were careless or that the Empress was very scheming. She was actually able to lay down layers of traps before the main character noticed. Big Miss Yi, is what you said true? Her ladyship was pregnant before? Zhou Mama looked at Yi Jioga with a pale face. That's right. Yi Jioga nodded with certainty. Her ladyship, my pitiful her ladyship. Zhou Mama's lips trembled. She suddenly slapped herself. She couldn't help but cry out of regret. As the ladyship's personal mama, she actually didn't notice in time that her ladyship was pregnant. She deserved to die 10,000 times. Big Miss Yi, what poison did her ladyship get? Dongfang Ke asked seriously. Chapter 89. Noble consort she's poison is called beauty illusion, Yi Jioga explained. This poison was very strange. Although it was a poison, it could suppress injuries. It was just that the injuries would look better on the surface, but the insides would continue to rot. What was even more strange was that this poison couldn't be used to clear heat and detoxify. The more powerful the spirit medicine, the more severe the backlash would be. The 1,000-year snow lotus that Emperor Xian Wu had gotten was a fatal poison to noble consort Shi. Because this poison was too strange, the spirit doctors couldn't tell that noble consort Shi had a miscarriage or that she was poisoned. In the end, they attributed it all to a strange disease. Where did the Empress get this poison? Dongfang Ke's heart kept sliding. The spirit doctors had never heard of the king poison in his body and the spirit poison in noble consort Shi's body. How could they fight against the Empress? I'm not sure about that, but the world is big and full of strange things. You might think these poisons are strange, but they're actually very common in other places. For example, this beauty illusion poison is a poison used on noble consort Shi who had a miscarriage, but if used on ordinary women, it has the effect of retaining their beauty. That's why some noble ladies in small countries would take it regularly and detoxify it regularly, Yi Jioga said. Noble consort Shi was older than Bai Linglong and could be considered Dongfang Ke's mother's generation. No matter how she took care of herself, it couldn't stop the passage of time. The reason why she couldn't be as delicate as a young girl was because of this poison. However, using such an extreme method to take care of herself was very dangerous. If she wasn't careful, she could fall into a state of eternal damnation. Then how can this poison be detoxified? Nanny Zhou wiped her tears and asked. The child's situation couldn't be saved, so the most important thing now was to cure noble consort Shi's poison. First use medicine to drain the clotted blood in noble consort Shi's body, then force out the beauty illusion. The method sounds simple, but the process is very painful. When draining the clotted blood, the suppressed beauty illusion will rebound and all the muscles in the body will rot. When the beauty illusion is forced out, the rotten muscles will peel off. That feeling is probably no different from death by 1,000 cuts. Yi Jioga sighed. Although she could use needles to seal noble consort Shi's pain sensation, it was only temporary. This was because after the acupuncture points were sealed, it would affect the curative effect, so the pain was unavoidable. When Nurse Zhou heard Yi Jioga's description, she immediately felt a chill rising from the soles of her feet. She couldn't even say a word. Based on my observations, noble consort Shi is a person with a determined personality. She should be able to endure this kind of hardship. The only problem now is whether or not to tell her about the miscarriage that Her Highness once had. Yi Jioga looked towards Dongfang Ke and Nanny Zhou. When noble consort Shi heard that she had been deceived by the spirit doctor for so long, she was so angry that she vomited blood. If she knew that the child of her dreams was right in front of her, only to be lost because of her negligence and the enemy's persecution. She didn't even realize it from the beginning to the end, so he didn't know how sad she was. Dongfang Ke was silent. Nanny Zhou could not help but shed tears. She was noble consort Shi's wet nurse. She watched her grow up and loved her as if she was her own flesh and blood. No one knew better than her how much noble consort she wanted a child at that time. For the sake of the child, she even gave up the vegetarian diet that she had insisted on for many years to eat Chinese medicine that made her have a big appetite. Even if she gained weight, she was still ecstatic. It would have been fine if she hadn't been pregnant, but now that she had it and lost it, that feeling was the most painful. Yi Jioga found that he couldn't count on these two at all, so he could only say, "We'll talk about this later. Nanny Zhou, you've been out for so long. You should go back and take care of Her Highness first. If she wakes up, let me know." Yes. Nanny Zhou was also worried about Her Highness and hurriedly went back. When she returned to the room, she saw that Her Highness was still sleeping soundly. She finally heaved a sigh of relief, then started washing her face with water so that Her Highness wouldn't notice anything strange. In the end, she had only washed halfway when noble consort she woke up and called her from the inner room. She hurriedly wiped her face and entered the inner room. "Nanny, why are you crying?" Noble consort she and Nanny Zhou had been together for decades and knew her very well. She could tell that she was crying with one look. No, this old servant just accidentally blinded her eyes. This person is old, and it's easy to cry. Nanny Zhou smiled. "You don't need to lie to me. Did Miss Yi tell you something? Is it difficult to cure my poison?" Noble consort she stared at Nanny Zhou's face closely. She felt uneasy in her sleep just now, worried that everything just now was a dream. Yi Jioga was just perfunctory with her. When she woke up, it was all gone. "No, Miss Yi said that she has a way to cure it. She even gave you a prescription. If you don't believe me, you can ask her later." Nanny Zhou quickly comforted noble consort she. "Then why are you still like this?" Noble consort she didn't believe it. Over the years, people around her always told some white lies in order to comfort her. She also knew that they were doing it for her own good. But now, she didn't need those lies. She wanted the truth. No matter how cruel it was better than being kept in the dark. Nanny Zhou really couldn't bear to talk about the child, so she repeated the treatment plan that Yi Jioga said and then cried, "Your Highness, this old servant feels so sad when I think that you have to suffer like this. I wish I could suffer for you. The pain of 1,000 cuts." Noble consort she chewed on these 4 bloody words. It would be a lie to say that she wasn't afraid. She had seen the punishment of 1,000 cuts before. It was done by a eunuch who had done many evil things. He was cut 120 times, and in the end, only a bloody frame was left, but he was still alive. After seeing it, she was so scared that she couldn't sleep for a few days and nights. At that time, Emperor Xian Wu, who was only the 3rd prince, vowed to comfort her. If one day he can ascend to the throne, he will remove all these bloody and cruel punishments. Because of this sentence, she was sure that Emperor Xian Wu would be a benevolent ruler in the future. In order to help him ascend to the throne, she was willing to give the position of princess consort to the vicious Xue Mingzhu. In order to help him win over the Bai family, she treated Bai Linglong as a sister and tried to win her over. She loved Bai Linglong's son as her own. But in the end, Xue Mingzhu was as stable as Mount Tai on the throne of the empress. She gave birth to an idiot son, Dongfang Jianming, also became the crown prince. But her face was ruined, and she lived a life worse than death. Even Linglong's child became a cripple. But Emperor Xian Wu and Xue Mingzhu still sat on the throne and lived a peaceful and stable life. Why? Noble consort she suddenly opened her eyes. Her beautiful left and rotten right face showed unforgettable hatred. She said word by word, "Tell Miss Yi that as long as my face can be restored, I am willing to suffer the pain of 1,000 cuts." Chapter 90. Imperial Consort. Elderly Lady Zhou looked at Imperial Consort she with heartache. "Go." Imperial Consort she ordered fiercely. Yes. Elderly Lady Zhou knew that the Imperial Consort hated people crying when she was sick. She wiped her tears and turned back into a capable elderly lady. Then, she went out to invite eldest Miss Yi in. Eldest Miss Yi, the imperial consort invites you over to talk. Please don't talk to her about the child for now, elderly Lady Zhou pleaded in a low voice. Okay, I understand. Yi Jioga was not a talkative person. If it was not necessary, she would not say more. When Yi Jioga entered the room, imperial consort Shi's attitude was much better than before. Not only did she cooperate, but she also asked elderly Lady Zhou to record all the precautions that Yi Jioga had mentioned. She was as serious as a student about to take part in an imperial examination. Imperial consort, take this prescription first. After the blood clots in your body have been emptied, we will perform the next detoxification treatment. After careful consideration, Yi Jioga wrote down a prescription for promoting blood circulation and removing blood clots. She also noted that the prescription had to be decocted before it could be taken. Although the pill could expel the poison quickly, its medicinal properties were too strong. Therefore, the first few doses had to be decocted. After imperial consort she had adapted, she would slowly increase the dosage. Finally, she would use the spiritual cleansing pill to completely empty the blood clots in her body. Okay. Imperial consort she nodded. She carefully took the prescription and read the names of the herbs carefully. She had become a doctor after a long illness, so she had a certain understanding of medicine. At first glance, she knew that Yi Jioga was using herbs for promoting blood circulation and removing blood clots. Then, she added a few herbs to replenish the heart meridian. The detoxification pill that grandfather gave you still has some residual medicinal properties near your heart meridian. Therefore, these herbs are to stimulate those medicinal properties. Seeing that imperial consort she was reading seriously, Yi Jioga explained in detail the effects of the various herbs and their effects on her body. Eldest Miss Yi is indeed meticulous. Imperial consort she was very satisfied with Yi Jioga's patient attitude. After putting away the prescription, she smiled and said, I have been studying medicine books all these years. I thought that I was half a spiritual doctor. After seeing your prescription today, I realized that my knowledge is shallow. Imperial consort, you are too modest. Not many people are as proficient in medicinal knowledge as you are, Yi Jioga praised sincerely. Imperial consort she felt pain at the slightest touch of these drugs, which showed that her theoretical knowledge was very solid. What she lacked was clinical experience. However, she was researching prescriptions to treat her own illness, not to become a spiritual doctor, so her lack of experience was understandable. I've seen a prescription similar to yours in a medical book before. However, that prescription was used to treat postpartum blood congestion. I didn't expect it to be used to expel toxins, Imperial consort she said with a smile. Yi Jioga's heart skipped a beat. She thought that Imperial consort she had noticed something. But looking at her expression carefully, there was no abnormality. She was probably just saying it casually. Nyang Nyang, leave this prescription to this old servant for safekeeping. In a moment, this old servant will grab the herbs and come back to help you decoct the medicine. Zhou Mama said without revealing anything. Okay. Imperial consort she did not suspect anything and handed the prescription to elderly servant Su. Imperial consort, it's getting late. I'll head back first. I'll visit you again tomorrow. Yi Jioga stood up and said. She had been out for half a day. If she did not return soon, Qing Mama would be worried. Eldest Miss Yi, it's not convenient for you to enter and leave the prince residence. Why don't you wait until I finish this treatment? Imperial consort she said considerately. She knew that the smell in her room was unpleasant. It was good enough that Yi Jioga had been patient enough to accompany her for a day. Furthermore, her illness needed to be treated slowly. It would not be good to tie her up here. That's fine. Yi Jioga nodded. Imperial consort she's treatment plan had been decided. She only needed to treat her gradually. She did not need to be by her side all the time. Yi Jioge left Imperial Consort Shi's courtyard and went to bid farewell to Dongfang, Quebec. Eldest Miss Yi, the second-grade thousand threads grass that you prescribed to Imperial Consort Shi cannot be found in the capital's pharmacies. Where can I find it? A trace of worry flashed across Dongfang K's handsome face. He was really worried that Yi Jioge would come up with some iceberg or mountain. The thousand threads grass usually grows in the swamps of the forest. I'm planning to go out and gather herbs in the next few days. When the time comes, I'll bring them back. Yi Jioge was very concerned about Imperial Consort Shi's situation, so she planned to gather the herbs herself. Do you want me to send a few people to help you? Dongfang Ke asked. Yi Jioge had already done her part by being willing to treat Imperial Consort Shi. She would feel bad if she had to gather the herbs herself. No need. It's better for us to be unfamiliar with each other during this time to avoid arousing the Empress' suspicion. Yi Jioge was worried that Dongfang Ke's men would attract the Empress's suspicion if they went to look for the thousand threads grass. All right. If you need anything, just let me know. As long as I can do it, I will not refuse. Dongfang Ke nodded. He would remember Yi Jioge's kindness in his heart. After Yi Jioge left the prince's residence and returned to the Jilin residence, she told Qing Mama that she would be going out to gather herbs the next day. Are you going alone? What about Lord Bai and Lord Wan? Qing Mama asked immediately. Yi Jioge saw that Qing Mama looked like she would go if no one accompanied her, so she lied, Lord Wan is not free. Lord Bai will accompany me into the mountains. Bai Songling did not need to go to the Justice Department every day, so it would be less likely that she would be exposed. How many days will you be gone? Qing Mama asked again. 3 days at least, 7 days at most, Yi Jioge gave a conservative estimate. She had used the excuse of enclosed cultivation to recuperate. She could not be gone for too long. All right, then I will help you prepare. Qing Mama immediately went to prepare the luggage with a smile. If Lord Bai was willing to accompany the eldest miss into the mountains to gather herbs, didn't that mean that the two of them were already very close? Perhaps it wouldn't be long before she would hear good news. Let's see which B*TCH dares to say that the eldest miss is ugly and unmarriageable. Yi Jioge let Qing Mama do as she pleased. She entered the pill production room and began to prepare the herbs to enter the mountains. This time, she was going to the swamp to look for the thousand threads grass. Besides the poisonous snakes and ferocious beasts in the mountains, she also had to prevent mosquitoes from biting her. The mosquitoes in the swamp were no joke. There were so many of them that they could carry a person away. There was also miasma and evil energy. These were all deadly things. She also had to prepare the antidote pills in advance. Yi Jioge busied herself for more than 2 hours before she finished preparing all kinds of pills. Treading through the night, she returned to the brightly lit room. She found a large package on the table. It must be the luggage that Qing Mama had prepared for her. Yi Jioge opened it and was speechless. She saw that there were exquisite and beautiful dresses inside, and they were made of very expensive silk. Every dress was carefully matched with headwear, earrings, and necklaces. None of the headwear was repeated. Even embroidered shoes were prepared in pairs. In one of the mahogany boxes, there were rouge, powder, lip gloss, and eyebrow pencil. How was this entering the mountains? This was clearly a blind date. However, eldest Miss was right. She had to think of a foolproof plan to cover for eldest Mississippi. When Yi Jioge heard the footsteps of Mother Qing leaving, he finally breathed a sigh of relief and began to pack up. The dresses and jewelry all walked away. Black training clothes and cloth shoes were the best equipment for going out, as well as firewood, flint, and other necessities for camping. Yi Jioge packed his things and stuffed them into a piece of animal skin that he sewed himself. Then, he went to sleep peacefully. What she didn't know was that her every move in Purple Forest Garden, including the things prepared by Mother Qing and others, the medicinal materials entering the alchemy room and the dregs of the refined medicine, fell into a pair of scheming beautiful eyes of the Yi family. The owner of the beautiful eyes raised her enchanting red lips and gave an order to the darkness. Send a letter to Her Majesty. Tell her that Yi Jioga will go to the monster forest to collect medicinal materials tomorrow. Let her be prepared. The next morning, the sky was still dim. Yi Jioga changed into men's clothes, carried the animal skin bag and quietly left the Yi family. She rode all the way and finally arrived at the monster forest 500 miles away at noon. The monster forest, as the name suggested, was a gathering place for monsters. It was densely forested with poisonous insects and monsters. Even advanced spiritualists did not dare to go deep into it. Find a place to eat grass and drink water. Yi Jioga patted the big black horse's head. The horse she rode was an old horse trained by the Yun family since childhood. It could survive even in the wild. After the big black horse left, Yi Jioga quickly entered the monster forest. Most of the medicinal materials on the periphery of the forest had been collected. If she wanted to find good medicinal materials, she had to go deep into the forest. Yi Jioga identified the direction according to the humidity of the air and the density of the leaves. She walked all the way west toward the swamp. The beast repellent pill she prepared played a great role. Her journey was very smooth. In less than an hour, she found a small brown swamp. Strictly speaking, the 1,000 silk grass did not grow near the swamp. It grew on the head of a rank 2 monster, the mud frog. This kind of mud frog usually hid in the swamp. If she wanted to lure it out, she had to use a kind of spirit herb called the wonderful frog seed. Yi Jioga took out a brown seed the size of a thumb from the cloth bag. She pinched the brown skin and put the white flesh on the edge of the swamp. She quietly hid on a big tree next to it. She saw a small bubble on the calm swamp. Then, with a plop, a big frog covered in thick mud jumped out of the swamp. On the brown head grew a dark green plant the size of a palm. It was the 1,000 silk grass that Yi Jioga was looking for. The big frog looked around and found that there was no danger. Then it jumped toward the white flesh. It opened its mouth and stuck out its thin tongue, rolling the seed into its belly. Yi Jioga took the opportunity to land. She raised her knife and cut off the 1,000 silk grass on the big frog's head. Croak, croak, croak. The big frog was so scared that it turned around and ran away. It plunged into the swamp with a bang. Yi Jioga did not chase it. It was not easy for the big frog to grow so big. It would be a pity to kill it. The most important thing was that the 1,000 silk grass on its head would grow back after being cut. The 1,000 silk grass was much more valuable than the big frog. With a sustainable attitude, Yi Jioga decided to put it back in the swamp. She could pick it up again if she needed it. Yi Jioga put away the 1,000 silk grass and was about to leave the swamp. Suddenly, a fishy odor unique to high-level demonic beasts assaulted his nostrils along with the breeze. In the next second, a silver-white figure pounced at her with a sharp gust of wind. Yi Jioga turned around and struck out with her palm. She retreated 3 feet. There was a clang. It sounded like metal hitting a hard stone floor. The silver-white figure landed on the ground. It was a rank 3 wolf beast. Its eyes were dark green like emeralds. Occasionally, they flashed with a violent red light. Its fur was as white as snow. There was only a tuft of black fur on the top of its head. It looked like the black hat of a county magistrate. It was the symbol of a leader. The wolf beast leader stared at Yi Jioga with its dark green eyes. More than 10 gray wolf beasts appeared behind him. They surrounded Yi Jioga. Chapter 92. That's not right. Yi Jioga frowned. This swamp was the land of the mud frogs. It was impossible for the wolf beasts to come here to hunt. Something must have happened that forced them to come here. Yi Jioga opened her spiritual eye, and discovered that the wolf beast's eyes were flickering with an abnormal red light. which spread to their entire bodies. Obviously, these wolf beasts were poisoned by some unknown poison, and their ferocious nature was activated, treating Yi Jioga as their enemy. Yi Jioga then took out some beast repellent powder and scattered it on the wolf beasts. The wolf beast leader retreated a few steps, but under the urge of its ferocious nature, it once again approached Yi Jioga. Following that, it opened its mouth, and spat out a few sharp green wind blades towards Yi Jioga. Yi Jioga dodged, and the wind blades landed on a tree behind her that was wide enough for two people to wrap their arms around. The big tree fell to the ground. The wolf beast leader anxiously used its claws to dig a few holes in the ground. The other wolf beasts lowered their bodies, and let out threatening growls. It was obvious that they could no longer hold back, and were ready to attack at any time. Yi Jioga looked around, trying to find an escape route. It was not that she did not have the ability to kill these wolf beasts, but in the demonic beast forest, the smell of blood would cause the other demonic beasts to go crazy. At that time, if another group of demonic beasts came, she would not be able to escape. The wolf beast leader let out a battle howl. 3 wolf beasts pounced towards her, one in front and one behind her. Yi Jioga did not bother them, and instead, turned around and climbed up the tree. She was like a monkey, running around the tree, while the wolf beasts chased after her. Yi Jioga ran around a few rounds, but was still unable to shake off these wolf beasts. They all had a way to lock onto their prey, and unless she could escape out of the demonic beast forest, she would be chased to the end. Look at your stupid face. Zi Shang looked like he was watching a show. If you're not stupid, why don't you come and try? Yi Jioga said unhappily. Fine, this sovereign will be merciful today, and let you see what is the aura of a ruler. Zi Shang laughed. Following that, Yi Jioga felt a mysterious power in her body. She could not help but raise her head, and looked at the demonic beasts as if she was looking at ants. The wolf beasts that were going crazy suddenly trembled, and then they let out a cry for mercy, and knelt down in front of her, as if they were worshipping the Wolf King. Yi Jioga had to admit that Zi Shang's strength was awesome. She took out the antidote powder and sprinkled it on the ground. She ordered the wolf beasts, eat all of this. The wolf leader's green eyes flashed with anger and fear. It probably thought that Yi Jioga was forcing them to eat poison. Yi Jioga didn't bother to explain. He simply used his purple deceased king's aura to suppress them. The wolf leader had no choice but to bring its underlings over to swallow the antidote powder that Yi Jioga had sprinkled. Ao ao ao. The wolf beasts howled in pain at the same time. Then, they opened their mouths and vomited mouthfuls of black blood. After vomiting, the redness in their eyes and bodies faded, and they regained their original consciousness. Black Gauze Hat, take your little brothers and leave. If you find anything wrong in the future, run away from the downwind position. Yi Jioga saw the blood they spat out and guessed how they got hit. The wolf leader gave Yi Jioga a grateful look before quickly retreating with its little brothers. Zi Shang, can you find the person controlling these wolf beasts? Yi Jioga asked in a low voice. She only told Mother Qing that she was going to the mountain to pick herbs. How could someone ambush her in advance? She didn't believe that Mother Qing betrayed her. She could only catch the person who ambushed her and ask him. They are 1 mile to the east. Zi Shang said. Elder sister wants to see who is plotting against me. Yi Jioga's figure flashed and ran towards the east. 1 mile only took half an incense stick of time. Yi Jioga stood on a fork in the tree. From afar, he saw a group of black-clothed people standing in the forest. One of the skinny and short figures was particularly familiar. It was Mother Su. Why did she come here? Yi Jioga couldn't help but frown. She came to pick herbs today, not to risk her life. If possible, she didn't want to fight with Mother Su. With me here, what are you afraid of? Zi Shang said lightly. He had already discovered that the old woman had brought people to follow Yi Jioga. He didn't say anything because he wanted Yi Jioga to discover it herself. He didn't expect that this little girl was so focused on picking spirit herbs that she didn't notice anything. With such a muddle-headed temperament, what would she do without him by her side? It seemed that she would have to rely on herself for the rest of her life. Revenge is only interesting if you do it yourself. What's the point of relying on your help? Yi Jioga knew that Zi Shang was very strong. As long as Zi Shang was willing to help, nothing could stop him. This kind of powerful strength could easily make people feel dependent on him. She didn't want to become a useless person who depended on others. Moreover, Zi Shang was a demon. If she fought too often, she was afraid that she would leave traces. If people found out that she was colluding with the demon race, she would be finished. Idiot, have you forgotten the consultation fee that I helped you earn? Zi Shang said. You mean that Thunder Snake Mirage Whip? Although that spirit whip was powerful, it was still not enough to deal with Mother Su. Yes, actually that Thunder Snake Mirage Whip is not a spirit tool, but a demon tool. Zi Shang said. Speaking of which, that Thunder Snake Mirage Whip was quite related to him. This was because the material used for this Mirage Whip was the 7th rank demon snake, White Scale King. This traitor who intended to usurp the throne was personally killed by him, and his corpse was also thrown into the primordial battlefield. He also didn't know which demon race junior actually secretly entered the primordial battlefield and refined the corpse of the White Scale King into a demon tool. Moreover, the refinement was quite decent. If people who didn't know what was going on saw this thing, they would really think that it was a damaged spirit tool. How could this be a demon tool? Yi Jioga didn't believe it. How could a demon tool be driven by spiritual power? Did he think that she was a 3-year-old child? In the hands of a human, this demon tool is just an ordinary spirit tool, but in the hands of a demon, it is a powerful bloodthirsty demon tool. Although you are not a demon, with this deity here, you can still awaken it and make it recognize you as its master. This was a very simple matter for him. You want me to use a demon tool to kill people? Are you afraid that others won't know that I have an affair with you? Yi Jioga rolled her eyes. Right now, she wished that she could hang a sign on her chest to tell everyone that her sister had nothing to do with the demon race. How could she still carry a demon tool and go around killing people? Idiot, if I didn't tell you, you would be able to tell that this is a demon tool. As long as Yi Jioga didn't tell anyone, no one in the human race would be able to tell that this was a demon tool. No matter what you say, I won't use a demon tool. Yi Jioga shook her head firmly. It was already very dangerous to be entangled with a demon race. Adding a demon tool to the mix, it was really playing with fire and burning oneself. Even if it can kill Mother Su, you still won't use it? Zi Shang asked. Chapter 93. It was very tempting to kill Wet Nurse Su. Yi Jioga hesitated for a moment before asking, Are you sure others can't tell that it's a demon weapon? I'm sure. All right. Yi Jioga admitted that he couldn't resist the temptation of becoming stronger and asked, How do I make it awaken? Zi Shang simply said, You just need to feed it a drop of blood. Blood again? Is my sister's blood so valuable? Yi Jioga complained in his heart, but he still followed Zi Shang's instructions. He bit his finger and dripped a drop of blood on the head of the lightning snake illusionary whip. As soon as Yi Jioga's blood seeped in, the lightning snake illusionary whip's body suddenly trembled. A line of blood extended from its head to its tail before disappearing again. Then, the lifeless lightning snake illusionary whip opened its bloody eyes and emitted a terrifying aura. At this moment, the men in black in the open area respectfully said to Wet Nurse Su, Wet Nurse, those wolf beasts should have consumed most of Yi Jioga's energy. Should we go and see what's going on? Go. Remember, leave one alive. Wet Nurse Su's skinny face showed a ruthless expression. When she heard that Yi Jioga was going to enter the mountain, she took the initiative to accept this task from the Empress. As long as she could force out Yi Jioga's secret, she could do whatever she wanted with him. Although Yi Jioga was only a beginner spiritual practitioner, he was much better than those mortals without cultivation. He believed that after sucking her blood dry, he would definitely be able to break through and become a spiritual master. Wet Nurse Sue was imagining the beautiful days after she advanced. Suddenly, she felt a chill behind her and instinctively dodged to the front. The black-clothed men who were still standing in their original spots were stunned. They saw a shadow of purple lightning attacking them. They subconsciously turned around and wanted to escape. Only a boom was heard. The bodies of these men in black were torn apart by the shadow. Blood and flesh flew everywhere, and broken limbs fell to the ground. Wet Nurse Sue couldn't help but widen her eyes and look at Yi Jioga in disbelief. Even though she was an evil cultivator, she had never seen such a bloody and terrifying attack. Yi Jioga shook the lightning snake illusionary whip in his hand, but his face was pale. That attack just now had consumed too much spiritual power. What kind of person was Mammy Sue? She immediately found that something was wrong with Yi Jioga. She smiled gloomily and said, "Wicked girl, there is a way to heaven, but you don't take it. There is no door to hell, but you come. Since you have come, you will die." After saying that, he activated the evil force in his body, and a protective spiritual light with a thick smell of blood rose up. Yi Jioga found that the protective light around Nanny Sue's body had grown a bit stronger than when she was in Splendid Palace. He didn't know how many lives she had sucked to reach this point. Her expression darkened. She picked up the Thunder Snake illusionary whip and shouted, "Old witch, let's see who will die here today." After saying that, the lightning snake illusionary whip automatically attacked, transforming into countless whip shadows that attacked Wet Nurse Sue. Nanny Sue waved her hands and sent out red palm shadows one after another to block the attack of the Thunder Snake illusionary whip. The more she fought, the more frightened she became. Originally, she thought that Yi Jioga would have used up most of her spiritual power after using that kind of attack. She didn't expect that Yi Jioga would become more and more ferocious. The spiritual whip in her hand was like a cunning and cruel python that opened its bloody mouth and wanted to swallow her. What Nanny Sue didn't know was that Yi Jioga was also in extreme pain at this moment. The Thunder Snake illusionary whip was frantically sucking spiritual power from her body. She felt like she was going to be sucked dry. "Zi Shang, what's going on?" Yi Jioga wanted to forcibly pull away, but she couldn't. If this continued, before Nanny Sue fell, she would become dried meat first. It's a demonic artifact, so it always has a bit of a personality. "You just need to communicate with it," Zi Shang said lazily. "How do I communicate?" She couldn't be yelling at the whip. She wasn't crazy. "Use your soul power to forcibly give it an order," Zi Shang kindly reminded her. Zi Shang kindly reminded, "You'll be sucked dry in 30 minutes, so you have to hurry. Catch your sister." At the moment of life and death, Yi Jioga was practically shouting with her soul, "Damn your Thunder Snake illusionary whip, if you dare to suck Big Sister's spiritual power again, Big Sister will cripple you." The Thunder Snake illusionary whip couldn't help but tremble. As expected, it stopped sucking energy from Yi Jioga. It immediately flew away from Yi Jioga's hand and fiercely stabbed into Nanny Sue's chest, frantically devouring her. Nanny Sue's body quickly dried up, and her face was as white as paper. She looked down at the silver snake on her chest in disbelief. In the past, she was the one who sucked other people's blood. She didn't expect that one day, she would be the one being sucked. Yi Jioga's expression was unsightly as she looked at the Thunder Snake illusionary whip that had instantly turned blood red. She couldn't tell that it was a demonic artifact with such a ghastly appearance. Did she think everyone else was blind? "It's fine, it's just too thirsty. It'll just suck once," Zi Shang said without sincerity. Yi Jioga instantly felt like she was being played. At this moment, Nanny Sue's body had already dried up like a skull. Just as she was about to call it a day, her body suddenly swelled up, and a strange red color appeared on her face. The Thunder Snake illusionary whip instantly returned to Yi Jioga's hand as if it had seen a ghost, and returned to its previous harmless appearance. "Not good, she's going to self-destruct." Hurry and run. Zishang quickly sent a wave of demonic energy into Yi Jioga's body. At the same time, Nanny Su's body exploded with a loud boom. A huge wave smashed into Yi Jioga's body like a hammer. She only felt her blood and chi churning, and her body flew out like a kite with a broken string. Hold on, I'm going to sleep for a while. Zishang said the last sentence, and then went silent. F***ck, F***ck, F***ck. Yi Jioga was really going crazy. Her spiritual energy had already been sucked dry by the Thunder Snake illusionary whip, and she couldn't move at all. She could only fall straight down from the sky, smashing through countless branches and leaves along the way, and finally smashing a human-shaped pit on the ground. Yi Jioga was buried in the ground. She strongly suspected that her face was disfigured, and her face hurt terribly. At this moment, the demonic beast's howl resounded in her ears, filled with the threat of an outsider. She used all her strength to raise her head, and what entered her eyes was a round black hat. It turned out that the wolf beasts that she had released earlier were having a meal together, and there were still traces of blood on the corners of their mouths. The wolf beast leader was currently looking at her with a bewildered expression, trying to recognize who this person was from her badly battered face. Hi, Black Hat, we meet again. Yi Jioga reluctantly greeted them. She didn't know if these wolf beasts still remembered her kindness of not killing them earlier. One must know that she was in so much pain that she couldn't even move a finger. If the wolf beasts wanted to kill her, it would be as easy as flipping their hands. Fortunately, the wolf beast leader quickly recognized Yi Jioga, and surrounded her while whimpering, as if asking her how she was injured. I fought with the bad person who controlled you for 300 rounds, and was accidentally sent flying by her. Yi Jioga said with difficulty. Awoo. The wolf beast leader howled twice, and then lowered its head to grab Yi Jioga onto its body, and carried her deep into the forest. Chapter 94. The wolf leader carried Yi Jioga through many twists and turns before returning to the swamp. After a series of howling, woo-ao. Several bubbles appeared in the swamp. Then, the round head of the big mud frog popped out. Gwa gwa gwa. Ow ow ow. After some kind of communication between the wolf and frog, the mud frog looked at Yi Jioga with grievance before diving back into the swamp gloomily. Then, with a poof, the swamp spat out a lake blue stone. The wolf leader grabbed the lake blue stone with its claw and rolled it to Yi Jioga's mouth. It howled twice, obviously wanting her to eat it. Yi Jioga looked at the lake blue stone from the corner of her eyes. Could it be a magical medicine used by the demon race? Ow ow. The wolf leader urged impatiently. Yi Jioga steeled her heart and swallowed the stone. But it was useless. The burning pain in his internal organs just now was even worse now. Especially her lungs. They were burning. Even breathing was extremely painful. Then, the wolf leader carried Yi Jioga on its back and carried her across half of the demon forest. Finally, they arrived at the edge of a cliff. The cold mountain wind caused the wolf leader's fur to flutter. Yi Jioga suddenly had a bad feeling. It couldn't be what she was thinking, right? Before Yi Jioga could react, the wolf leader squatted down and threw her down the cliff. F***ck, it turns out that the demon beast repaying kindness is all a lie. Yi Jioga's body fell with a whoosh. Then, with a loud bang, she smashed into the big lake at the bottom of the cliff. The powerful water pressure hit her in the chest. Her whole body was in pain. Finally, her survival instinct was aroused. Yi Jioga waved her hands desperately in the cold lake water, trying to swim up. But she was horrified to find that her body kept falling. It was as if something was pulling her feet down to the center of the lake. Yi Jioga panicked for a moment. Then, she was surprised to find that her mouth and nose were not blocked by the lake water. Instead, she could breathe freely in the lake. She thought of the lake blue stone that the wolf leader had made her swallow. Could it be that it wasn't trying to murder her, but was actually trying to save her? Yi Jioga calmed himself down and followed the flow of energy from the center of the lake. The small fish in the lake looked at the foreign tourists strangely. They swam around her in groups for a while, but soon lost their patience and swam away. Yi Jioga kept descending until he finally arrived at a cave at the bottom of a lake. There seemed to be something in the dark cave that was attracting her. Yi Jioga hesitated for a moment before following his instincts and swimming into the cave. After passing through a dark and narrow passage, his eyes brightened. The walls of the cave were covered with light blue aquatic plants, which emitted a bright light. It was very beautiful. Yi Jioga's eyes lit up. He hurriedly plucked a handful of seaweed and put it in his mouth to chew. A bitter yet sweet taste filled her mouth. Then, a cold spiritual power rose from his dantian, and the pain on his body and face was immediately relieved. I've struck gold. Yi Jioga's eyes turned into the shape of ingots. These aquatic grasses were actually stage 2 blue jade aquatic grasses. The blue jade water grass contained extremely pure water spiritual energy and was a treasure for healing injuries. If he brought it to the medicine hall, he could sell it for 1,000 taels of silver each. There were at least 10,000 blue jade aquatic grasses here. If he brought it back, he would definitely become rich overnight. Other than being valuable, this spiritual grass also had a very important function. It was a natural painkiller. With this spiritual medicine, not only would imperial consort she not have to endure the pain of being dismembered, she would also be able to speed up her body's recovery. This was simply an unexpected surprise. Yi Jioga excitedly cut off the blue jade aquatic grasses and stuffed them into the beast skin bag that she carried with her. Only when she could no longer pretend did she reluctantly continue forward. After passing through the passage at the bottom of the lake, there was a pool of water above. Yi Jioga stuck her head out and found that she had arrived at a cave. The cave was tall and deep, and it was frighteningly spacious. She immediately became vigilant. This kind of place was either the lair of a big demonic beast or a treasure trove filled with traps. No matter what, it was dangerous. Yi Jioga stuck to the wall of the cave and slowly walked inside. At this moment, a rolling sound suddenly came from afar, as if something was rolling towards her. Yi Jioga clenched the lightning snake illusion whip in her hand. Although this demon artifact was a scam, it was strong enough to give her a sense of security at critical moments. As the rolling sound approached, Yi Jioga's nerves were also stretched to the extreme. She had just raised the lightning snake illusion whip when she saw a round, chubby black figure desperately pushing a dirty pill furnace in front of her. Pippi. That black and fat little thing raised its head, revealing a pair of big black grape-like eyes. It was watery and looked a little cute. Although this fat guy looked a bit like a mouse, it was different from those mice in the sewers. It had round ears, big eyes, a small nose, and a chubby body. It looked soft and harmless. However, Yi Jioga did not completely relax her vigilance. Who knew if this soft and cute appearance was its disguise? Maybe in the next second, it would turn into a big monster and swallow her. The black fat mouse rolled the pill furnace in front of Yi Jioga again and softly shouted, "Pippi." Inexplicably, Yi Jioga understood its meaning. "For me?" Yi Jioga pointed to herself. "Pippi." The black fat mouse nodded its head with force. Yi Jioga did not rashly pick up the pill furnace. Instead, she opened her spiritual eye and examined it carefully. She discovered that there was nothing special about this pill furnace and it did not look like a hidden weapon. Thus, she picked it up from the ground. She blew away the dust on it and discovered that it was a three-legged bronze cauldron. There were complicated carvings on it and it gave off an ancient aura. Yi Jioga inexplicably felt that this was a treasure. Her money grubber heart was touched and she did not hesitate to keep it. "Pippi." The black fat mouse happily called out and turned to walk into the depths of the cave. Yi Jioga lit up a fire and cautiously followed behind the black fat mouse. They arrived at an even wider cave. When the fire lit up the surrounding cave walls, Yijioga could not help but take in a breath of cold air. She saw that the cave walls were filled with ravines and it gave off an incomparably desolate feeling. In the middle of the ravines, there was some light blue paint mixed in. She carefully observed and discovered that the light blue paint on the cave walls was actually a mural. Unfortunately, it was already destroyed by the crisscrossing scars and nothing could be seen. Yijioga used her hand to pick up the remaining paint and discovered that it was made from some kind of ore that contained spiritual energy. A mural painted with this kind of paint should be incomparably hard and it should not be a problem for it to be preserved for thousands of years. Now that it was destroyed to such a state, how powerful must the culprit be? Chapter 95. Yijioga carefully studied the marks on the cave wall. She found that there was no pattern to these marks. There were also large pits in some places. It didn't seem like a premeditated destruction, but more like the marks left behind after a fierce fight. To be able to destroy such hard cave walls and murals to this extent, one had to be at least a great spiritual master. Yijioga tried to analyze the fragmented murals, but the damage was too severe, and she couldn't understand it at all. At this time, she found a line of small characters in the corner, so she squatted down and wiped the dust off it. Looking carefully, it turned out to be her grandfather Yin Tianwei's handwriting. It meant that he heard that there was an ancient ruin here, and he deliberately came to find it, only to find that it had been destroyed. He then strongly condemned these people for not having a moral heart, not even letting go of the murals. Through this long string of curses, Yijioga seemed to have discovered some unknown hobbies of her grandfather. She tried to find clues about her grandfather's disappearance from these words. But apart from the curses, the only useful information was that there should be a cauldron in this ancient ruin that was very useful to alchemists. Then, Yijioga found a relatively complete mural in another corner. On it was a majestic and spectacular bronze cauldron. The fire underneath was in the shape of a golden lotus. Inside the cauldron, there were countless golden fish playing. On top of the cauldron, there were also red-crowned cranes dancing, like the birth of immortal pills. Yijioga quickly took out the small bronze cauldron that the fat black rat gave her. This thing couldn't be the ancient cauldron that her grandfather had mentioned, right? Even her grandfather couldn't find a treasure, but this fat black rat actually pushed it in front of her. Could it be that her beast skills had exploded today? But when she compared the small cauldron with the big cauldron on the mural, she suddenly felt that she was fantasizing. How could such a gray thing that didn't even have spiritual power be an ancient cauldron? At this time, the fat black rat came out of nowhere and came to Yijioga's feet, crying cutely, "Pippi." Yijioga looked down at it and found that this fat black rat was carrying a small cloth bag on its back. The style was very similar to the animal skin bag she was wearing. Was this the reason why it chose to give the bronze cauldron to her? The fat black rat also looked up at her, its black eyes full of admiration. Yijioga was speechless. Obtaining the love of a fat black rat was not something to be happy about. After confirming that there were no secret passages or treasures in the cave, she returned to the pool and prepared to leave. The fat black rat carried a small beast skin bag on its back and followed closely beside her, looking as if it wanted to take her away. "What do you want?" Yijioga grabbed the back of its neck and lifted it up. It curled up its limbs and called out softly, "Pippi." She blinked her big eyes and tried to act cute. Trying to act cute when you're so fat? You're looking for the wrong person. Yijioga rejected him. "Pippi-chan." The fat black rat's small body trembled, and its big eyes were covered with a layer of tears. It looked pitiful like an abandoned puppy. All right. Since you gave me the bronze cauldron, I'll take care of you for a period of time. However, you have to pay for your meals and living expenses on time in the future." Yijioga glanced at the small animal skin bag and instinctively felt that there must be something good inside. "Pippi." The fat black rat immediately covered its small bag with its paws and looked at Yijioga with vigilance. Yijioga let go of its neck and said, "If you can keep up, then keep up." After saying that, she jumped into the pool and swam out along the way she came. Yijioga originally thought that if the fat black rat couldn't keep up, she would be merciful and take it with her. She didn't expect the fat black rat to be better at swimming than her. Its fat paws slid from time to time, and it slid hundreds of meters. It was enjoying itself by Yijioga's side. It even grabbed a handful of blue jade water grass in the passage and gnawed on it while swimming. On the contrary, Yijioga found that she didn't have enough oxygen halfway. It seemed that the effect of the thing given by the wolf beast was gradually disappearing. She hurriedly sped up and finally came out of the water before suffocating to death. It was already late at night. The bright moonlight shone on the surface of the water, making it look like a dream. The fat black rat also followed Yijioga to the surface of the water, and then shook its fur, sprinkling water droplets on the ground. "Who are you?" Yijioga looked at the fat black rat's fur that had instantly become incomparably gorgeous, feeling as if it had been replaced halfway. "Pippi?" The little thing tilted its head and looked at Yijioga, not understanding why she was so surprised. Yijioga carefully looked at the little thing. She found that its black fur had turned a pale silver under the moonlight, shining beautifully. It was covered with golden lines, like rippling water. The most amazing thing was that there was a small golden flower bud on its head. But soon, all the strange phenomena on its body disappeared, and it returned to its fat black appearance. The fat black rat saw that Yijioga was in a daze, so it swam to the shore. Then, it walked into the demonic beast forest with its head held high, as if it was patrolling its territory. Yijioga hurriedly followed and saw that it quickly came to the swamp and shouted, "Pippi." Then, the big mud frog jumped out of the swamp. The wolf beast leader also brought its little brothers over to meet up. "Pippi." The fat black rat straightened its chubby chest, raised its paw majestically, and waved at them, as if it was a leader inspecting its territory. The big mud frog and the wolf beast leader cooperated and called out a few times. Only then did the fat black rat put down its little paw in satisfaction. Then, it rummaged in its animal skin pouch. It took out a green seed that was even bigger than it and a round black stone, placing them in front of itself. Yijioga's eyes were sharp, and he could tell at a glance that it was a level 3 wonder frog seed and a level 3 wind spirit stone. Croak, croak, croak. Ow, ow, ow. The mud frog and the wolf beast leader's attitude became obviously more enthusiastic. "Pippi paste." The fat black rat generously piled the 2 items in front of the mud frog and the wolf beast leader. It looked as if they had done a good job, and the boss would reward them. The mud frog and the wolf beast leader were very satisfied with this reward, and they quickly retreated after eating. Damn! With such good things as a reward, this fat black rat was simply a rich rat. In an instant, Yijioga looked at the fat black rat differently. Especially the small bag on its body, it was obviously something similar to a Qinkuan bag. This thing was very valuable, and maybe even Emperor Xian Wu couldn't get it. He didn't know where this fat black rat came from, but it actually said it was a treasure. "Pippi." The fat black rat called out to Yijioga cutely. Then, its chubby body suddenly bounced up. Like a small cannonball, it accurately fell into Yijioga's bag. It dug out a place in the bag full of miscellaneous items, then curled up into a ball and prepared to rest. Before sleeping, it did not look at Yijioga and called out, "Pippi." The proud look on its face clearly seemed to be saying, "Master wants to rest, let me kneel and rest." Chapter 96. Looking at the fat black rat, Yijioga suddenly felt that she had been cheated. The proud look was completely different from the cute look in the cave. Did she find an ancestor to come back? Well, for the treasure of the tyrant rat, she would endure it. Yijioga was not in the mood to continue wandering in the monster forest. After leaving the forest, she put her fingers in her mouth and began to call the big black horse she brought. Da-da-da. The sound of the horse was accompanied by people's voices. Yijioga jumped on a big tree and saw several torches rising not far away. Obviously, some people were searching the mountain. She was shocked. Could it be that the Empress had fallen out with her and sent a large group of people to kill her? At this time, a familiar voice sounded, "Miss Yi, where are you?" Yi Jioga recognized that it was Bai Songling's voice and jumped down from the tree. Seeing that he was still holding his big black horse, she could not help but ask, "Why are you here?" "Mother Qing asked us to find you," Bai Songling said. "Why did she come to find you?" Yi Jioga's heart skipped a beat. Mother Qing never went out of the Yi mansion. It seems that something happened in the Yi mansion. Mother Qing suddenly came to find me. Bai Songling sighed and looked at Yi Jioga helplessly. Mother Qing was shocked when she saw him and kept asking why he was at home. Didn't he go to collect herbs with her, miss? It was as if he had abandoned Yi Jioga after using her. Bai Songling spent a lot of effort to convince Mother Qing that he did not know that Yi Jioga was going to the mountain to collect herbs with him. After knowing this, Prince Dongling immediately sent someone to the mountain with them to find Yi Jioga's whereabouts. "Sorry, Mother Qing is used to worrying. If I don't tell her that I will go out with you, she will be worried," Yi Jioga said awkwardly. She knew very well how naggy Mother Qing was. Bai Songling must have suffered a lot. "As long as you are safe. But if you want me to be your shield next time, you can tell me in advance. I will definitely cooperate," Bai Songling said lightly. "Thank you." Yi Jioga smiled embarrassedly. At this time, Wan Ziang also rushed over, followed by a few spiritual guards of the Prince of Dongling residence. It could be seen that Dongfang Ke attached great importance to Yi Jioga. When he heard that something had happened to her, he immediately sent out the most outstanding spirit guard in his residence. "Eldest Miss Yi, you didn't." Wan Ziang raised his torch and walked over to Yi Jioga. Before he could finish speaking, he was stunned. His eyes flashed with a trace of amazement. "Young Lady Yi, your face." Bai Songling's eyes widened as she looked at Yi Jioga. She looked as if she had seen a ghost. The sky was too dark and Yi Jioga was standing under the tree. He was so focused on talking that he didn't notice that Yi Jioga's face had changed. "What's wrong?" Could it be that she had hurt her face when she was in the demonic beast forest? She remembered that her face hurt terribly at that time. Yi Jioga hurriedly reached out to touch his face. His skin was as smooth as silk. She suddenly had a bad premonition and quickly asked, "Who has a mirror?" But why would a group of men carry a mirror with them? Later on, a spiritualist with a water spiritual root made a small puddle for Yi Jioga. Yi Jioga stood next to the puddle and looked at it. She suddenly felt as if she had been struck by lightning. A peerless beauty appeared on the surface of the water. Curved eyebrows, long eyelashes, and a straight nose. Her white and flawless skin revealed a faint pink color. Her cherry mouth was as delicate as a rose petal. Especially her pair of charming eyes. They were as clear as the spring water. Her beautiful eyes were filled with spiritual energy. Damn, why does she look like a white lotus? Yi Jioga couldn't accept this kind of honor. "Eldest Miss Yi, what's wrong?" Bai Songling looked at Yi Jioga's painful appearance and felt very strange. Wasn't becoming beautiful something to be happy about? Why did she look like this? "No, I'm just not used to it." Yi Jioga shook her head. She looked up and saw that the group of male spiritualists had a stunned expression on their faces. Yi Jioga suddenly felt a little emotional. It seemed that no matter where she was, a world that looked at one's face. "Eldest Miss Yi, it's getting late. Mother Qing must be very worried about you. Why don't we go back first?" Bai Songling said. If they went back now, they would be in time to open the city gate. "Okay." Yi Jioga put on the curtain hat, turned over and mounted the big black horse. She followed Bai Songling and the others to Shangjing. It was just before dawn when they returned to Shangjing. The soldiers guarding the city were yawning and sleepily walking out. As soon as they saw the waste token of the Ministry of Penalty that Wan Ziang took out, they respectfully welcomed them into the city. Yi Jioga rode the horse back to their mansion with Bai Songling and Wan Ziang. Those spiritualists had to go back to the prince's mansion of Dongling to report. At this time, Mother Qing had not slept all night. She was anxiously pacing back and forth in Wan Ziang's mansion. As soon as she saw Yi Jioga, she asked excitedly, "Eldest miss, where have you been? I'm so worried about you. Didn't I tell you that I went to the mountains to collect herbs?" Yi Jioga got off the horse and said, "Why did you lie to me that you went to the mountains with Lord Bai?" Mother Qing complained discontentedly. This question was embarrassing. Bai Songling was beside them. Yi Jioga hurriedly pulled Mother Qing to the house and said in a low voice, "I'll explain it to you later." Okay. Mother Qing also found it was not appropriate to pursue these things in front of outsiders, so she did not say more. After entering the house, Yi Jioga asked Mother Qing, "Why did you come here in the middle of the night? Not long after you left this morning, the master brought someone to Zilin Garden and said that he wanted to see you. I told him that you were recuperating and it was not convenient for you to see guests. But he did not believe me and shouted to kill you. He even smashed the door. I found that something was wrong, so I hurriedly came to find you." Mother Qing originally wanted to ask Wan Ziang for help, but she did not expect that it was Bai Songling who came to open the door. At that time, she thought that eldest miss was cheated by Bai Songling and even wanted to kill him. How did father know that I was not in the yard? Yi Jioga frowned and thought of Mammy Su who hid in the demon beast forest to ambush her. It was obvious that someone in the Yi mansion was monitoring her, and this person was very powerful. "I don't know, but let's go back quickly. I'm afraid that if we are late, the master will catch up to Yaoguang Garden and catch Chenju and the others to vent his anger." Before Mother Qing left, she asked Chenju to take the other maidservants and run to Fourth Miss to take refuge. "Okay, let's go back now." Yi Jioga nodded and then said to Bai Songling and Wan Ziang, "I'll have to trouble you to send a message to His Highness for me. Tell him that the spiritual grass has been found. After I finish the matter in the Yi mansion, I will go find him." After saying that, he took Mother Qing and rushed to the Yi mansion. Chapter 97. At this moment, Yaoguang Yuan was in a state of chaos. Zhenju brought along a servant girl from Purple Forest Yuan and hid in a remote room in Yaoguang Yuan. Qing Hu and Qing Lu were comforting them softly. Fifth Aunt's face was pale as she looked at the situation outside through the window. Yi Yuxuan frowned and shouted at Yi Rui who was blocking in front of her, "What are you doing?" "Father, I can't let you take Zhenju and the others away." Yi Rui was small, but she stood bravely in front of Yi Yuxuan with her arms open. She didn't look like she was going to back down. "They're not servants of Yaoguang Yuan. What business do you have?" Yi Yuxuan said impatiently. He had already let Mother Qing run away. He definitely couldn't let the remaining servant girls go. He couldn't deal with Yi Jioga, but he could kill a few of her servant girls. Although they're not servants of Yaoguang Yuan, they're still very important to me. Yi Rui racked her brains to think of an excuse. Before Big Sister brought them back, she had to stall her father. "What's so important about them to you?" Yi Yuxuan didn't believe her. They were just a group of servant girls. How important could they be? They can help me clean the pill furnace and organize my pill refining notes. Yi Rui couldn't think of any other excuse and could only say random things. "Ha!" Yi Yuxuan sneered and said, "You let the servants of Purple Forest Yuan clean your pill furnace and organize your pill refining notes. Then what's the use of the servants in your courtyard?" Before Yi Rui could finish, she was forcefully interrupted by Yi Yuxuan. "Since the servants in your courtyard can't be used, then there's no point in keeping them. Sell them all." When Qing Hu and Qing Lu heard this, they couldn't help but shiver. They were really afraid that Yi Yuxuan would tie them up as well. "No, they're just as useful." Yi Rui hurriedly shook her head. "I'll say it here today. You can only keep one servant of Purple Forest Yuan and Yaoguang Yuan. Yi Yuxuan's eyes were gloomy. He released the aura of a fifth-rank pill refiner and pressed down on Yi Rui like a mountain. He was very angry and felt that his painstaking efforts had been wasted. Fourth girl, this ingrate, was actually siding with an outsider and supporting Yi Jioga in every aspect. If he doesn't teach this damned girl a lesson today, she might turn into a second Yi Jioga. Yi Rui's face was pale and her eyes widened in horror. He felt that Yi Yuxuan had merged with the sinister and terrifying evil cultivator in the basement. Cold sweat seeped from her forehead and back, drenching her clothes in an instant. Yi Yuxuan thought that his aura had suppressed her, and his face revealed a complacent smile. Fifth concubine found that her daughter was not quite right and was about to open the door to go out. Fifth concubine, you can't. Qing Hu hurriedly stopped fifth concubine. Just now, Yi Rui had specifically told her mother not to appear in front of Yi Yuxuan, in case she angered him again. At most, I'll just be beaten by master. Fifth concubine pushed Qing Hu away and rushed out to pull her daughter into her arms. Only then did he realize that her whole body was drenched, her whole body was trembling, and her pupils were dilated as if she was in a nightmare. Rui, what's wrong? Fifth concubine was a big child. She patted her daughter's little face, but she didn't see any reaction from her. She hurriedly looked towards Yi Yuxuan and cried, Master, Rui is not good. Quickly look at her. Stop pretending in front of me. Yi Yuxuan thought that they were acting and glanced at the two of them with disdain. Then, he ordered the guards behind him, go in and tie up all the servants. Don't leave a single one alive. Song Bai hesitated for a moment and asked in a low voice, what about the people from Yaoguang Garden? Yi Yuxuan looked down at fifth concubine, who was at a loss. The corner of his mouth revealed a sinister smile and said, tie them up together. Yes. Song Bai no longer hesitated and immediately rushed in with his men, chasing Pearl, Qing Hu, and Qing Lu out. Fifth concubine, help. Qing Hu and Qing Lu shouted in panic. When fifth concubine heard Qing Hu and Qing Lu's cries, she finally came back to her senses. She hugged Yi Rui and begged Yi Yuxuan bitterly, Master, these two servant girls are Rui's personal servant girls. They have always taken good care of her. Please spare them. She didn't have the ability to save the people in Purple Forest Park, but she had to protect Qing Hu and Qing Lu. Rui's personal servant girls? Yi Yuxuan's gloomy eyes swept over Qing Hu and Qing Lu. His fierce expression caused people to tremble. Fifth concubine opened her mouth but didn't dare to reply. Looks like these two servant girls instigated Rui to disobey me. Yi Yuxuan nodded to himself, then ordered Song Bai, bring these two servant girls to the torture room and beat them to death. Master. Fifth concubine screamed mournfully. She never thought that her pleading would bring about a fatal disaster to Qing Hu and Qing Lu. Let the servants in the residence come over and see what happens if they do something wrong. In the future, they will know what they should do and what they shouldn't do. Yi Yuxuan said coldly. Yes. Song Bai nodded and immediately called out to the guards, what are you still standing there for? Why aren't you dragging them to the torture room? Yes. The two guards were tall and sturdy, and their eyes were extremely wretched. They laughed as they walked towards Qing Hu and Qing Lu. Their two large hands deliberately grabbed their small breasts, obviously wanting to take the opportunity to jam oil. Courting death. At this time, an angry shout accompanied by the sharp sound of the wind came. A whip flashing with purple light lashed towards the two guards. The two guards screamed as their arms unnaturally drooped down. Their tendons and bones were all broken. Eldest young miss. Qing Mama. Qing Hu and Qing Lu had tears in their eyes as their faces were filled with surprise. Yi Jioga wore a veil hat and held the Thunder Snake illusion whip as he stood in front of them to protect them. Qing Mama hurriedly untied the two servant girls. Yi Jioga, you still have the face to come back. Yi Yuxuan raised his hand and pointed at Yi Jioga as he shouted. Father even has the face to bring a man outside to make a ruckus in his own backyard. How can I not have the face to come back? Yi Jioga raised his eyebrows as he spoke in an unruly manner. What nonsense are you saying? These are my personal guards, how are they outside men? Moreover, I only had them punish a few disobedient servants. What does this have to do with the backyard? Yi Yuxuan heard Yi Jioga mock him for wearing a green hat and his face became crooked from anger. Is that so? I wonder what wrong the servants in Fourth Sisters and my courtyard did to actually make father muster such a large force to punish them? Yi Jioga sneered. You didn't return at night. Not only did these servants not report it, they even helped you cover up your mistake. They deserve to die 10,000 times. Also, those dog servants from Yaoguang Yuan who taught the young master and instigated Fourth Miss to go against me also deserve to die. Yi Yuxuan said sinisterly. Chapter 98. Then why don't you ask me why I didn't come home last night? Yi Jioga asked. You know what shameful things you've done. Do you still have the face to ask me? Yi Yuxuan had a look of, I don't have a shameless daughter like you. Father, you're wrong. I really have the face to ask you about what I've done. I originally wanted to give you a surprise, but I didn't expect that you wouldn't distinguish between right and wrong and want to kill me. Do you hate me so much that you want me to die? Although Yi Jioga already knew that his father was a scumbag, he still felt helpless sometimes. What nonsense are you talking about? I'm teaching you for your own good. How could Yi Yuxuan admit that when he saw Yi Jioga, he would think of the matter of him marrying into her family? He simply wished that she could die. Is that so? Father is so considerate of your daughter. You should be happy to see your daughter like this. Yi Jioga said as he raised his hand and took off the veil hat on his head. The golden morning sun shone on her beautiful facial features, and her fair and flawless skin shone with a jade-like radiance. Her pair of charming eyes were like the clear ripples of spring water. Her beautiful eyes were full of spiritual energy. She was like a fairy who had descended to the mortal world, pure and untainted. If it was someone else's father, he would be happy to see his ugly daughter become a beauty. Yi Yuxuan, on the other hand, looked as if he had seen a ghost. He couldn't help but take a few steps back as a trace of fear flashed across his face. It was Mother Qing's first time seeing Yi Jioga after restoring his appearance. She couldn't help but blurt out, Madam? Madam? Could it be that he and his mother looked alike? Yi Jioga's memories of his mother were already very vague. Every time he thought of her, he could only remember her thin and weak body and her kind but pale face. Eldest Miss, if Madam knows that you have restored your appearance, she will definitely be happy for you in the underworld. Mother Qing looked at Yi Jioga's face and wanted to cry and laugh at the same time. When Yi Yuxuan heard the words, in the underworld, his expression changed again. No matter how much he hated Yun Tianwei, he couldn't deny that Yun Jiaojiao was a gentle and virtuous woman. She didn't have the aura of a delicate girl, and she was very gentle and considerate to him. He had done countless unforgivable things to her. Father, are you happy to see your daughter recover her appearance? Yi Jioga intentionally walked a few steps towards Yi Yuxuan. Happy, happy. Yi Yuxuan hurriedly nodded, but his footsteps involuntarily retreated. Then he turned around and ran away as if he was being chased by a ghost. Song Bai hurriedly brought his men to carry the two armless guards and followed Yi Yuxuan out of the courtyard. Yi Jioga couldn't help but ponder as he watched Yi Yuxuan flee. With how despicable and shameless Yi Yuxuan was, he was actually scared away by her face that looked like his ex-wife. He must have done something extremely guilty. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so scared. Eldest young lady, quickly come and take a look at Rui. Fifth aunt shouted hoarsely. She was afraid of attracting Yi Yuxuan's attention, so she didn't dare to make a sound. Only now did she dare to ask for help. What's wrong with fourth sister? Yi Jioga quickly squatted down to take a look. He saw that Yi Rui had fainted in fifth concubine's arms, and her entire body was drenched in cold sweat. She reached out to take Yi Rui's pulse and found that her pulse was slow and rapid. It was a sign that she was in a state of panic, but fortunately, it wasn't serious. Fourth sister is fine. She was just frightened. Hurry and bring her back to change her clothes so that she doesn't catch a cold. Yi Jioga stood up and saw Jinju, Qinghu, Qinglu, and the others looking at her in fear. She said, "It's fine. Go back to Purple Forest Park and do what you need to do. Qinghu, Qinglu, go boil some hot water for fourth young lady to wipe her body." With Yi Jioga's order, the frightened servant girls immediately calmed down and consciously went to work. After Yi Rui changed her clothes, Yi Jioga pricked a few needles on her body. The little girl suddenly opened her eyes and waved her hands and feet wildly. She screamed in panic, "Go away, go away." She looked as if she had just come out of the basement. "Fourth sister, it's fine. Eldest sister is here." Yi Jioga held Yi Rui's small hand tightly and comforted her. Yi Rui slowly calmed down and looked at Yi Jioga blankly. "Eldest sister? It's fine. You are very safe now. Have a good sleep. You will be fine when you wake up." Yi Jioga comforted her gently. Yi Rui's tensed body slowly relaxed. Then, she closed her eyes and fell asleep again. "Eldest young lady, what happened to Rui?" Fifth concubine's face was still snow white. Previously, Yi Jioga had only said that Yi Rui was frightened when she was kidnapped. Now, it seemed that it wasn't as simple as a scare. "It's fine." Yi Jioga didn't intend to tell fifth concubine about the basement. It was useless to tell her. What could she do? "It's all my fault. I can't protect my daughter and the servant girls by my side. Other than being despised by master, I'm useless. I might as well die. Who knows, I might as well let Rui regain some face." Fifth concubine said with tears in her eyes. "If you think like this, then you are extremely useless." Yi Jioga said coldly. "Dying is easy. Living is difficult. If you really think for Rui, shed fewer tears and do more things." With that, he stood up and left. She was exhausted today. Whether fifth concubine could stand up or not depended on her own awareness. Mother Qing followed Yi Jioga's steps. As soon as she entered Purple Forest Park, she immediately asked, "Eldest young lady, how did your face suddenly recover?" "This time, when I went into the mountains to pick herbs, I accidentally picked a jade grass. I didn't expect that after eating it, the black scars on my face would disappear." Yi Jioga didn't say that wet nurse Su ambushed her. Eldest young lady is being perfunctory with me again. Mother Qing obviously didn't believe it. "It's true. If you don't believe me, look. I also picked up a spirit beast. It was the one that brought me to pick the jade grass." Yi Jioga quickly grabbed the fat black rat. "What kind of spirit beast is this?" Mother Qing took a closer look and suddenly said with some disgust. "Why is it a rat?" Although this fat black rat looked quite cute, it couldn't change the fact that it was a rat. The fat black rat felt Mother Qing's disgust. It immediately puffed out its chubby chest and squinted its eyes. It looked at Mother Qing with disgust. It had a look that said, "You stupid mortal, this uncle doesn't care about you." Then it went back into Yi Jioga's bag. This fat head rat even became a spirit. Mother Qing couldn't help but laugh. She finally believed that this fat black rat brought good luck to eldest young lady. She immediately asked happily, "What does this fat head rat like to eat?" "This old servant will get someone to prepare it. This is not urgent. I have something for you to do." Yi Jioga told her about the matter of someone in Yi Mansion watching their Purple Forest Park. Finally, he said, "Although Yi Mansion has many spies, but to be able to accurately guess my whereabouts, this person is definitely not simple. We must find her." Chapter 99. Don't worry, eldest Mississippi. I'll definitely find the culprit. Mother Ching nodded seriously and decided to start investigating from Purple Forest Park. Yi Jioga was at ease with Mother Ching handling things. She was tired and sleepy, so she went to sleep after bathing and changing clothes. When she woke up, she found it was just past noon. She planned to go to Dongling Wangfu to see how Imperial Consort she was doing. She put on her hat and got on the carriage. She went to Wan Ziang and Bai Songling's mansion first. Wan Ziang went to the Ministry of Justice, so only Bai Songling was at home. He was surprised to see Yi Jioga and asked, "Eldest miss, why are you here? Is everything settled?" He thought Yi Jioga would be busy for a few days. "It's all done." Yi Jioga didn't want others to know about her conflict with Yi Yuxuan. "I just came back from Dongling Wangfu. His Highness and Imperial Consort were very happy to hear that you found spiritual herbs in Monster Forest. They said if you need anything, just let them know." Bai Songling smiled. Actually, Dongfang Ke wanted to go and help after knowing what happened to Yi Mansion. Unfortunately, Yi Yuxuan was on the Crown Prince's side. Seeing him would only add fuel to the fire. "I don't dare to give orders. Brother Bai, if it's convenient, please take me to Dongling Wangfu," Yi Jioga said. It wasn't convenient for her to go to Misty Rain Tea House alone. "Of course, follow me." Bai Songling had nothing to do in the mansion anyway. Yi Jioga followed Bai Songling into the mansion secretly. She didn't expect Dongfang Ke to not be there. Yi Jioga went straight to the courtyard to see Imperial Consort Shi. Seeing her, Nanny Zhou's face was full of enthusiasm. She reported the effects of Imperial Consort Shi's medicine. Imperial Consort Shi went to the toilet the whole day and is very weak now. She's resting in the room. It's fine. This is normal. Removing blood clots meant running to the toilet. Imperial Consort Shi was resting. Hearing Yi Jioga came, she forced herself up from the bed to see her. "Imperial Consort Shi, don't be so polite. Quickly lie down." Yi Jioga quickly persuaded. She personally took a red embroidered peony pillow and placed it behind her. "My body is really useless. I've let you laugh at me." Imperial Consort Shi was really weak and leaned on the bed. "Her ladyship looks much better." Yi Jioga carefully looked at noble Consort Shi. Although she was dispirited, the pustules and rotting flesh on the right side of her face had improved. The pustules had already begun to form scabs and were no longer oozing pus. The stench of rotting flesh had also faded a lot. The right medicine is indeed different. "I also feel much better." Imperial concubine Shi smiled. "When the clotted blood is expelled, the effects will be even more obvious." Yi Jioga smiled as he recounted how he had obtained the blue jade water grass in the mountains. Imperial concubine She was overjoyed when she found out that she didn't have to suffer the death of 1,000 cuts. After she calmed herself down, she couldn't help but ask Yi Jioga, "When you came in, I wanted to ask why you're wearing a veil hat?" "Because I took some herbs in the mountains and restored my original appearance. I'm still not used to it, so..." Yi Jioga smiled embarrassedly. She really wasn't used to walking around with a white lotus face. "Silly girl, becoming beautiful is a good thing. Why are you hiding it? Quickly take off your hat and let me see," Imperial concubine She said kindly. Yi Jioga put his hand on the brim of the hat. Before he took it off, he suddenly remembered something and asked, "Her ladyship, I heard that you often drank tea with my mother?" "That's right. At that time, Linglong and I often invited your mother into the palace. Your mother is a very good person, but her eyesight is too poor." Noble consort She didn't hide her disdain for Yi Yuxuan at all. Although Yi Yuxuan was handsome, talented, eloquent, and considered a good son-in-law in Shangjing, she could still see that he was selfish, despicable, and shameless. He was a good son-in-law in Shangjing, but she could still see that Yi Yuxuan was selfish, despicable, and shameless. Other than being good-looking and eloquent, what other abilities did that pretty boy have? She took off her veil hat and revealed her true appearance. Imperial concubine, she was originally leaning against the bed, but when she saw Yi Yuxuan's appearance, she couldn't help but sit up straight. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. Does she look like my mother? Yi Jioga asked. Yes, and no. Imperial concubine, she looked carefully and sat down again. How? Yi Jioga heard from Mother Qing that she was exactly the same as her mother. Your mother was gentle, sentimental, and emotional. You are better than her in both appearance and temperament. Imperial concubine, she sighed with emotion. If Yun Jiaojiao was as stubborn as Yi Jioga, she wouldn't have fallen ill after Master Yun went missing. In the end, she wouldn't have given the Yun family's business to Yi Yuxuan. Her ladyship is too kind. Yi Jioga smiled and didn't talk about her mother anymore. Instead, she talked about the treatment. She planned to start the final detoxification after the pustules and rotten flesh on Imperial concubine Shi's face were all scabbed. Imperial concubine, she said that she would listen to Yi Jioga's arrangements. Yi Jioga stayed for an hour before leaving. Dongfang Ke also came back. He had previously heard from Bai Songling that Yi Jioga had recovered her appearance, so he was still calm when he saw her. Moreover, he brought her a piece of bad news. Eldest Miss Yi, after old Master Su came out of seclusion today, he immediately sent people to bring Su Yufeng, who was locked in the ancestral temple, back to the Su family. Why did old man Su suddenly come out of seclusion? Yi Jioga was shocked. From Yi Yuxuan's expression, it seemed like he didn't know anything. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in the mood to find trouble with her. I also just heard the news. Old man Su has successfully advanced to Spirit Master. Dongfang Ke looked at Yi Jioga worriedly and said, you have to be careful. Old man Su coming out of seclusion is the Su family's matter. What does it have to do with me? Yi Jioga didn't care much. If Su Yufeng came back, then so be it. As long as she dared to make a move, he could chop off her claws. You don't know. Old man Su is from a grassroots family. His temper is explosive, unreasonable, and extremely protective. If Su Yufeng and her daughter say bad things about you in front of him, I'm afraid he will make things difficult for you. Dongfang Ke sighed. Could it be that he wants to personally teach a junior like me a lesson? Wouldn't he be shameless? That won't happen. I'm worried that he will say some unpleasant things. Dongfang Ke also felt that old man Su wouldn't. Then I'll just treat it as his fart. Yi Jioga said indifferently. No matter what, she was the Yi family's first daughter. If old man Su's words were too unpleasant, Yi Yuxuan and the Yi family would also be implicated. If Yi Yuxuan didn't care, then she wouldn't care even more. It's always good to be more prepared. Dongfang Ke advised. I understand. Yi Jioga nodded perfunctorily. She didn't take Dongfang Ke's words to heart. In her eyes, Su Yufeng and her daughter were just courting death. She could get rid of them before, and she could still get rid of them now. Dongfang Ke knew that it was useless to say anything more, so he didn't try to persuade her. After he sent Yi Jioga off, he returned to the study. After muttering to himself for a moment, he made a decision, ordered Lei Peng, prepare a horse, we're going to the relay station. Chapter 100. As soon as Yi Jioga returned to Purple Forest Park, Mother Qing anxiously came up and said, Eldest Miss, bad news, Master lifted second Miss's confinement. Oh. Yi Jioga nodded and sat down to drink tea. Why don't you find it strange at all? Mother Qing's old face was dumbfounded. When this news came out, the entire Yi mansion was shocked. What's so strange about it? Yi Jioga told him about old Master Su coming out of seclusion and bringing Su Yufeng home. With Yi Yuxuan's personality, he would definitely curry favor with this spirit master father-in-law. Naturally, he would release Yi Shanshan. This old man Su is really an old fool. His daughter did such a thing that's worse than pigs and dogs, yet he still has the face to bring her home. If I were him, I'd directly press Su Yufeng into a pig cage and drown her. Mother Qing said fiercely. I heard that old man Su is very protective of his people. Tell the people below to behave themselves and don't go out if there's nothing important. Yi Jioga was worried that Yi Yuxuan, that shameless scum of a father, would use her servants to curry favor with his father-in-law. Don't worry, First Mississippi. They know what to do. Under the training of Mother Qing, the maids of Purple Forest Park were even more sensitive to the movements of the Yi family than rabbits. Seeing the rise of the second miss, what else could they not understand? Recently, they were even more well-behaved than quails. When they passed by the main courtyard, they would make a detour. They've suffered with me. I'll give each of them a red packet later as a way to calm their nerves. Yi Jioga was also helpless. Yi Yuxuan and Su Yufeng didn't dare to touch her, so they thought about touching the people around her every day. The servants in her courtyard were frightened every 2 or 3 days, and it was hard on them. What's so hard about it? Being able to serve young miss is their good fortune from their previous life. Mother Qing's words were not boasting. In the Yi mansion, there was no master like Yi Jioga who treated his servants as his own people. Although they would be scared out of their wits by master and madam from time to time, Yi Jioga would always come to their rescue in time, making them incomparably touched. Compared to those masters who beat and scolded their servants and often pushed them out to take the blame, Yi Jioga was simply the reincarnation of Buddha. The servants of Purple Forest Park had banded together after being frightened time and time again. Not to mention, Yi Jioga was very generous. Whether it was his monthly allowance or his tips, they were all sufficient. Mother Qing, don't be too harsh on them. Yi Jioga was busy all day long. Apart from Jinzhu, who served him closely, he had little contact with the other maids. In the words of Mother Qing, these girls still needed to be trained. Don't worry, First Mississippi. This old servant knows what to do. Mother Qing had recently discovered that the aptitudes of these 2 young maidservants were pretty good. She was preparing to train them to see if they could become the eldest Mrs. Henchmen in the future. Since Mother Qing said so, Yi Jioga could only let her do whatever she wanted. In the following days, Yi Jioga locked himself in the alchemy room and began refining the detoxification pill for noble consort Shi. The 1,000 silk grass was a very troublesome spiritual material. It had to be soaked in dew for an entire night before the membrane on its surface could be washed off. After washing it, he still had to pick out the messy filaments inside before he could refine pills. Yi Jioga busied himself for the better part of a day before he was done with the 1,000 silk grass. When she was preparing to concoct pills, she suddenly thought of the small bronze cauldron that her fat black rat had given her. She wondered what the effects would be if she used it to concoct pills. Yi Jioga took out the dusty small bronze cauldron. She didn't know what was going on, but the copper rust on it couldn't be washed off no matter how much she washed it. It looked really dirty and broken. If others saw her using this broken cauldron to concoct pills, they probably wouldn't dare to use it. Yi Jioga didn't dare to use the 1,000 silk grass as a test subject. She took some tianqi, borneal, dispersing blood grass, white bull gall, pangolin, hua yam, bitter ginger, and geranium grass to refine the most classic hemostatic pill. After she injected spiritual power into the small bronze cauldron, the small cauldron was like an old cow pulling a broken cart. It slowly grew bigger and bigger. Yi Jioga waited until she was about to fall asleep. Only then did the small cauldron finally become a normal size. At this moment, Yi Jioga already had an ominous premonition. However, she still held on to a glimmer of hope. She placed all the medicinal ingredients into the small bronze cauldron and began refining. The fire used in Yi Jioga's alchemy room were all ordinary flames. If she were to use her alchemy furnace to concoct pills, she would probably need the time it takes to brew a cup of tea. However, this small bronze cauldron didn't have a good tolerance for the flames. After burning for a long time, the medicinal ingredients inside still didn't melt. Yi Jioga gloomily looked at the fat black rat that was still sleeping soundly in the animal skin bag. Sure enough, cheap goods don't come cheap. You really can't count on free things. She let the small bronze cauldron slowly refine. She turned around and prepared to start refining the 1,000 silk grass. At this time, the copper bell in the corner of the alchemy room rang, indicating that there was something to report. Yi Jioga opened the door to the alchemy room and saw Mother Qing anxiously saying, "Missy, Master wants you to go to the hall." "Why?" Yi Jioga asked. Mother Qing lowered her voice and said, "I heard that Master Su brought Madam back." "What does their return have to do with me?" Yi Jioga disdainfully said. "Missy, you are, after all, Master's biological daughter. You have to give him this bit of face." Mother Qing helplessly said. They could do whatever they wanted at home, but in front of outsiders, they still had to maintain the facade of a loving father and filial daughter. Otherwise, everyone in Shangjing would laugh at them. "All right, I'll go take a look." Yi Jioga returned to her room and changed out of the cloth clothes she was wearing for alchemy. She wore an ice blue long dress. Her black hair was combed into a snake bun. On the top of her head, there was a jade hairpin made of begonia and pearls. A thumb-sized pearl hung down, making her cheeks even whiter and more beautiful. "Missy is really beautiful," Mother Qing said with satisfaction. She believed that Su Yufeng and her daughter would be incomparably shocked if they saw Missy's current appearance. Yi Jioga smiled and leisurely walked towards the hall with Mother Qing and Jinju. As soon as he reached the outside of the hall, he heard a loud and clear voice. "Yuxuan, it's not that I want to criticize you, but how could you send your pregnant wife to a place like the ancestral temple to suffer? When I married Yufeng to you, what did you say? Have you forgotten all about it?" "Yes, yes, yes. Father-in-law is right," Yi Yuxuan replied in a low voice. "Father, don't scold Master. It's all my fault. I didn't take care of the backyard well, which made Master angry." After Su Yufeng persuaded her father, she softly said to Yi Yuxuan, "Master, I know I was wrong. Please forgive me this time. Don't talk about the past. This time, you come back and take care of the baby." Yi Yuxuan's tone was incomparably gentle. There was even a trace of annoyance as he said, "If I had known that you were already 3 months pregnant, I definitely wouldn't have sent you to the ancestral temple to suffer." You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.